I never thought I'd catch my own sister stealing from me, but there I was, staring at my quarterly trust fund statement in complete shock. The balance was less than half what it should have been, with a series of withdrawals I had never authorized. Each one labeled with the same transaction code, each one funneling my inheritance away. My grandfather had been meticulous with his money. A self-made real estate developer who grew up during the Depression, he trusted banks but trusted family, even less. "Money changes people, Olivia," he used to tell me. "Remember that when I'm gone." When he passed away 5 years ago, he left both my sister Charlotte and me substantial trust funds, enough that neither of us would ever have to work if we managed it properly. The catch was that we couldn't access the full amount until we turned 30. Until then, we received quarterly disbursements, enough to live comfortably but not extravagantly. Or at least, that's how it was supposed to work. I called the bank immediately. "This is Olivia Caldwell. I'm looking at my trust fund statement, and there are withdrawals I didn't authorize." "One moment, Ms. Caldwell." The customer service representative's voice was calm, professional. I wanted to scream. After a few clicks on her keyboard, she continued, "Yes, I'm seeing the withdrawals. They were authorized by Charlotte Caldwell, who is listed as a co-trustee on your account." My stomach dropped. There must be some mistake. My sister shouldn't have access to withdraw funds from my trust. According to our records, Ms. Charlotte Caldwell has had co-trustee status since January 15th of this year. January 15th, 3 months ago. Right after Charlotte had gotten married to Ryan, her whirlwind romance turned husband. A man none of us knew well, but who had swept my sister off her feet with his charm, his ambitious business plans, and his seemingly endless need for capital. "This can't be right," I insisted, my voice rising. "Can you tell me who authorized this change?" The representative paused. "It appears the authorization came from Mr. Harold Winters, the trust administrator." Harry, my grandfather's oldest friend and lawyer, the man who had helped draft the trusts and who had promised my grandfather he would look after us. "Thank you," I managed to say before hanging up. I sat at my kitchen table, trying to make sense of it all. Charlotte and I had always been close despite our differences. She was the impulsive, passionate one. I was the planner, the cautious one. She teased me about being boring. I warned her about being reckless. But we were sisters. We protected each other. Or so I thought. $500,000. That's what was missing from my account. $500,000 that was supposed to secure my future, help me start the interior design business I'd been planning, maybe buy a home someday. My phone rang. Harry's name flashed on the screen. "Olivia," he said before I could speak. "I just got a call from the bank. You've seen the statement." "How could you let her do this?" I demanded. "How could you give her access to my trust?" He sighed heavily. "Your grandfather's trust was complex. There are provisions most people don't know about." "Like what?" I snapped. "Like the fact that in certain circumstances, siblings can access each other's funds." "What circumstances?" Harry hesitated. "I need to see you in person. This isn't a conversation for the phone. Can you come to my office tomorrow morning? 9 o'clock? I agreed, but sleep was impossible that night. My mind raced with questions. Why would my grandfather set up our trusts this way? Why would Charlotte betray me like this? What was she using the money for? The answers, I would soon discover, were far more complicated and devastating than I could have imagined, and they all connected back to a clause in the trust that Charlotte had apparently never bothered to read. A marriage clause that was about to change everything for both of us. The next morning, I arrived at Harry's office 15 minutes early, too anxious to wait any longer. His secretary ushered me in immediately, her sympathetic smile suggesting she knew exactly why I was there. Harry stood as I entered, his tall frame stooped more than I remembered, his white hair thinner. He'd aged since my grandfather's funeral. Olivia, he said, gesturing to a chair. I'm sorry about all this. I don't want apologies, I replied, remaining standing. I want explanations, and I want my money back. He nodded, easing back into his own chair. I understand. But first, there's something you need to know about your grandfather's trust. Something I should have explained more clearly to both you and Charlotte years ago. I finally sat, bracing myself. I'm listening. Harry pulled out a thick folder, opening it to reveal the trust document with its dense legal language. Your grandfather didn't trust easily, he began, especially when it came to people marrying into the family for money. He'd seen friends lose fortunes to gold diggers, seen families torn apart by opportunistic spouses. I nodded impatiently. This wasn't news. So he included what we call a marriage clause in both your trusts. Harry pointed to a section of the document. In essence, it states that if either of you marries before the age of 30, your spouse has no claim to your trust fund in the event of divorce. That seems reasonable, I said, unsure why this mattered now. There's more, Harry continued. If there's any evidence that a spouse is attempting to access the trust funds improperly, or if there's reason to believe the marriage was entered into for financial gain, control of both trusts temporarily reverts to the other sibling. I blinked, trying to process this. Are you saying... When Charlotte married Ryan 3 months ago, she triggered the clause, Harry confirmed. And when she began making those withdrawals from your fund, withdrawals that coincide exactly with investments in Ryan's new business ventures, she gave me no choice but to implement the protection measures your grandfather put in place. My mind raced. So what does this mean exactly? Harry looked me directly in the eyes. It means, Olivia, that as of this morning, you are now the sole trustee for both your trust fund and Charlotte's. And your sister has no idea. I stared at Harry, his words hanging in the air between us. I control Charlotte's trust fund now? Yes, Harry confirmed, sliding another document across his desk. This is the official transfer of trusteeship. All I need is your signature to make it active. My hand hovered over the paper. This doesn't seem right. There must be another way to handle this. Harry's expression softened. Your grandfather anticipated your reaction. He knew you were the cautious one, the responsible one. That's why he structured it this way. He leaned forward. Olivia, this isn't about punishing Charlotte. It's about protecting both of you. From what? Ryan? I asked. We barely know him. Maybe he's just helping Charlotte invest. Harry's eyebrows rose. By taking money from your trust? Without your knowledge or consent? He had a point. I sighed, staring at the document. What exactly would this mean? What power would I have? You would control all disbursements from both trusts. Charlotte would need your approval for any withdrawals beyond her regular quarterly payments. And, he hesitated, you would have the authority to recover the funds she's already taken from your trust. By taking it from hers, I finished, seeing where this was going. Harry nodded. If necessary, yes. The weight of this responsibility settled over me. Charlotte would be furious. She'd see it as a betrayal, as me taking sides against her and her new husband. But she was the one who had betrayed me first, stealing from my future without even asking. What if I don't sign? I asked. Then the transfers from your account will likely continue, Harry said bluntly. Based on the pattern I'm seeing, your trust could be completely depleted within 18 months. I picked up the pen. How long would this arrangement last? Until Charlotte turns 30, or until her marriage ends, whichever comes first. Harry's voice was gentle but firm. Or until you, as trustee, determine that the threat to the funds has passed. 4 years. Charlotte was 26 like me. We were twins, but I was born 3 minutes earlier, a fact I had lorded over her our entire lives in jest. Now those 3 minutes seemed monumental. I signed the document, my signature feeling like both a betrayal and a necessity. What happens now? I asked. Now, Harry said, taking the paper. We wait for Charlotte to discover she no longer has access to either trust. I suspect that will happen very soon. He was right. My phone rang less than 2 hours later as I was driving home. Charlotte's name flashed on the screen. I pulled over, my heart pounding, and answered. What the hell did you do? Charlotte's voice was shrill, panicked. I could ask you the same thing, I replied, keeping my voice steady. $500,000, Charlotte, from my trust, without even asking me. A pause. I was going to pay it back. It's just a temporary investment. In what? Ryan's business ideas? The ones he's been pitching since the day you met him? You don't understand, she insisted. This is a real opportunity. Ryan has connections. Ryan has nothing, I cut in, except access to your money. And apparently mine too. That's not fair, Charlotte's voice cracked. He loves me. The business is just starting to take off. We needed capital. So you stole from me? The hurt in my voice was impossible to hide. Your own sister? I didn't steal, she protested. I was borrowing. I was going to tell you once we had the first returns to show you. I wanted to surprise you. I laughed, a hollow sound. Oh, I'm surprised, all right. Just tell Harry to fix this, Charlotte demanded. I need to make a withdrawal today. We have investors coming. No, I said firmly. No more withdrawals, no more surprises. If you want to discuss your quarterly disbursement, we can do that, but nothing more until we sort this out. You can't do this to me. Her voice rose again. That's my money. And this is my money, I countered, tapping the statement on the passenger seat beside me. The money you took without permission. The money that was supposed to help me start my business, build my future. I'm your sister, she said, as if that explained everything, excused everything. Yes, I agreed. You are. Which is why I'm not calling the police right now. Silence fell between us, heavy with years of shared history and this new, jagged betrayal. Ryan's going to be furious, she finally said, her voice small. Something in her tone made me pause. Was there fear there? Charlotte, is everything okay? With you and Ryan? Of course, she said quickly, too quickly. He was counting on this money for the next phase of the business. We both were. Then I guess you'll both have to find another way, I said. Or he will. Because my money is off the table. She hung up without another word. I sat in my car, staring at the blank phone screen, wondering if I had just lost my sister for good. When I got home, I poured a glass of wine and tried to think clearly. Charlotte and I had always been close despite our differences. We'd shared a womb, a bedroom, secrets, heartbreaks. The thought of a permanent rift between us was unbearable, but so was the thought of being taken advantage of having my future stolen by the person I trusted most. My phone chimed with a text. It was from Ryan, not Charlotte. We need to talk. Dinner tonight, 7 p.m., The Palm. The audacity stunned me. No request, just a command. I typed back, no. His response came immediately. This concerns your sister's welfare. Don't make me be more specific over text. A chill ran through me. What did that mean? Was Charlotte in some kind of trouble? Or was this manipulation a way to get me to release the funds? Either way, I needed to know. Fine, I texted back. But a public place of my choosing, Café Louis at 7? See you then, came the reply. I had 4 hours to prepare for whatever Ryan was planning. 4 hours to decide how much I was willing to sacrifice for my sister, and how much I needed to protect myself from both of them. Little did I know that dinner would reveal secrets about Ryan that would make the stolen money seem trivial by comparison. Secrets that would force me to choose between my sister's heart and her future. Café Louis was busy enough to be safe, but quiet enough for a private conversation. I arrived 15 minutes early, choosing a table with a clear view of the entrance and the added security of being near the waitstaff station. I wasn't taking any chances with Ryan. I'd only met him a handful of times. Charlotte had introduced him at Thanksgiving just 4 months ago. By Christmas, they were engaged. By New Year's, married at the courthouse with only his best friend as witness. No family, no celebration. Charlotte had called it romantic and spontaneous. I'd called it reckless. Ryan walked in at exactly 7, scanning the cafe with the practiced ease of someone used to assessing rooms. He spotted me and smiled, that charming, confident smile that had swept my sister off her feet. Tall, with carefully styled dark hair and an expensive watch that I now wondered if my money had paid for, he looked every bit the successful entrepreneur he claimed to be. "Olivia," he greeted, sliding into the seat across from me. "Thank you for meeting me." "You didn't leave me much choice," I replied coolly. "What's this about Charlotte's welfare?" He signaled to the waiter, ordered an espresso without consulting the menu, then turned his attention back to me. "I'll be direct. Charlotte is devastated. What you've done, seizing control of her trust, it's cruel." "What she did was steal from me," I countered. $500,000, Ryan. For what? Your business ventures? What exactly do you do anyway? Because every time I ask, the answer changes." His smile tightened. "I have diverse interests. Real estate primarily, but also tech startups, some import-export ventures. The kind of opportunities that require substantial capital upfront but yield significant returns." "Show me," I challenged. "Show me the business plans, the projections, the corporate filings. Show me anything that proves you're not just draining my sister's inheritance and mine for nothing." He leaned back, studying me. "You really are nothing like Charlotte, are you? She understands vision, potential. You want spreadsheets and guarantees. I want proof that my sister isn't being taken advantage of," I said flatly. "And I want my money back." The waiter delivered his espresso. Ryan took a sip, his eyes never leaving mine. "I love your sister," he said finally. "More than you can understand. The money, it's just a means to an end, to build a future for both of us. You've known her for 5 months. Some people recognize their soulmate immediately," he replied. Smoothly. "Others never do." The subtle dig wasn't lost on me. At 26, I'd had a few relationships, but nothing lasting. Charlotte had always been the romantic one, diving headfirst into love while I waded cautiously in the shallows. "If you love her," I said, "you'll understand why I need to protect her, starting with her financial security." Ryan's expression hardened. "Let me be clear, Olivia. Charlotte needs access to her funds now, her full funds, not just the quarterly pittance. We have investments that won't wait, opportunities that are time-sensitive. Name one," I challenged. He hesitated, then reached into his jacket pocket and removed a folded document, sliding it across the table. "A property acquisition. Prime commercial real estate in the downtown development corridor. The seller needs an answer by Monday." I unfolded the paper. It was a real estate prospectus for a rundown warehouse in an area of the city that had been promised revitalization for years, but had yet to see it materialize. "This is worth $500,000? I asked skeptically. "It will be worth 3 times. That once the city approves the rezoning next month," Ryan replied. "Inside information." Something clicked. "Is that why you married Charlotte so quickly? For her money to invest in your schemes?" His face flushed with anger. "You don't know what you're talking about." "I think I do," I pressed. "I think you targeted my sister because you knew about our trust funds. I think this investment is just one of many you've planned to drain her dry. And when there's nothing left, you'll disappear." Ryan's smile returned, but it didn't reach his eyes. "That's quite the imagination you have. But here's what's really going to happen." He leaned forward. "You're going to sign control of Charlotte's trust back to her." you're going to forget about the money she borrowed from yours. And this unfortunate situation will be forgotten. Or what? I challenged. Or Charlotte will suffer, he said simply. Not financially. I know that's your primary concern, but emotionally. You see, your sister believes in me completely. If you force this issue, make her choose between her husband and her sister, who do you think she'll pick? The threat was clear. He would turn Charlotte against me completely if I didn't cooperate. She'll see through you eventually, I said, though I wasn't entirely confident. Charlotte had always led with her heart, not her head. By then it will be too late, Ryan replied. For your relationship, at least. Is that what you want? To lose your sister over money? Put that way, it sounded petty. But this wasn't about the money. Not entirely. It was about protecting Charlotte from a man who seemed to view her as nothing more than access to a trust fund. I need time to think, I said finally. Ryan stood, leaving his espresso half-finished. You have until tomorrow, noon. After that, I tell Charlotte you refuse to help us in our time of need, that you're trying to control her life, that you've never supported her happiness. He buttoned his jacket. Do we understand each other? Didn't answer, which he seemed to take as agreement. With a nod, he walked out, leaving me with the real estate prospectus and a knot of dread in my stomach. I immediately called Harry. I need everything you can find on Ryan Bennett, I told him when he answered. Business history, credit report, criminal record, previous relationships, everything, by tomorrow morning. That's a tall order on short notice, Harry said. I ask why the urgency? Because I just had dinner with him, and I'm convinced he married my sister for her money, I replied. And I need proof before he turns her against me completely. Harry was silent for a moment. I've had similar concerns, he admitted. I'll see what I can find. Meet me at my office at 9 tomorrow. I spent a restless night, torn between worry for Charlotte and anger at both her and Ryan. By morning I was exhausted but resolute. This wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about saving my sister from what I increasingly suspected was a predatory relationship. What I didn't know was that Harry's investigation would uncover something far worse than a simple gold digger with grand schemes. Something that would make the trust fund theft seem like a minor concern in comparison. Harry's office was unnervingly quiet when I arrived at 9 the next morning. His secretary wasn't at her desk, and the door to his private office was closed. I knocked tentatively. Come in, Harry called, his voice strained. I entered to find him looking haggard as if he hadn't slept all night. Papers were strewn across his desk, and his computer screen glowed with what looked like public records databases. You found something, I said. It wasn't a question. Harry gestured to the chair across from him. Sit down, Olivia. I did, bracing myself. How bad is it? Worse than we thought, Harry replied, shuffling through the papers before selecting one. Ryan Bennett isn't his real name. My stomach dropped. What? His real name is Ryan Blackwell. He changed it legally 5 years ago. Harry slid a copy of a court document across the desk. Around the same time, he was released from prison. Prison? The word felt surreal. For what? Fraud, primarily. He ran a series of investment scams targeting wealthy women, gained their trust, convinced them to invest in fictional business ventures, then disappeared with the money. Harry's expression was grim. Sound familiar? Nausea rose in my throat. Charlotte? There's more, Harry continued. After his release, he seems to have refined his approach. Instead of just dating wealthy women, he began marrying them. 3 marriages in the past 5 years, all to women with significant assets. 3? I whispered. Is he still married to these women? Harry shook his head. Divorced, all rather quickly, and in each case the women lost substantial sums before the marriages dissolved. We have to tell Charlotte, I said, standing up. Right now. I agree, Harry replied. But we need to be careful. Men like this, when cornered, can become desperate and potentially dangerous. That stopped me cold. You think he would hurt her? Harry's expression was grave. I think we need to consider all possibilities. One of his previous wives filed a restraining order after their divorce, citing threatening behavior. My mind raced. Charlotte had always been the impulsive twin, the one who followed her heart without looking for warning signs. It made her vibrant, alive, and vulnerable to someone like Ryan. She's not going to believe us, I realized. Not just based on paperwork. She loves him, or thinks she does. She'll say we're trying to sabotage her marriage out of jealousy or spite. You may be right, Harry admitted. But we have to try. I checked my watch. It was 9:45. Ryan had given me until noon to decide whether to sign back control of Charlotte's trust. I need to see her alone, I said. Without Ryan, where would she be right now? Given the pressure they're under to secure this investment, probably at home, waiting to hear from you, Harry suggested. I nodded. I'll go there now. If Ryan's there, I'll find a way to get her alone. I gathered the documents Harry had prepared. Can I take these? Of course. He hesitated, then added, Be careful, Olivia. Men who live by deception don't react well when their lies are exposed. The drive to Charlotte's apartment felt like traveling through a tunnel with no light at the end. My sister and I had always protected each other. From playground bullies to high school heartbreaks to our parents' expectations, we'd been a united front until Ryan. Until now. I parked across the street from her building, scanning for signs of Ryan's sleek black Audi. It wasn't in its usual spot, which gave me hope he was out. Taking a deep breath, I crossed the street and buzzed her apartment. Who? Is it? Charlotte's voice crackled through the intercom. It's me, I replied simply. A long pause, then the door buzzed open. No words, no greeting, just the impersonal electronic sound granting me entry. I took the elevator to the 3rd floor, each floor past increasing my anxiety. What if Ryan was there after all? What if Charlotte refused to listen? What if I was already too late? She opened the door before I could knock, her face a mask of restrained anger. My twin, my mirror image in so many ways, yet in that moment, we couldn't have. Felt more like strangers. Come to gloat? She asked, stepping aside to let me in. No, I said quietly. I came to talk. Just us. Is Ryan here? No, she replied curtly. He's meeting with the seller of that property, the one you refused to help us buy. She led me into the living room, gesturing vaguely toward the couch. So you have about an hour before he returns. Make it count. I sat down, noticing how the apartment had changed since Ryan moved in. Charlotte's colorful throw pillows and eclectic art had been replaced by sleek, modern pieces that spoke more of a showroom than a home. Like her personality was being systematically erased. I need you to look at something, I said, removing the folder from my bag. About Ryan. Charlotte rolled her eyes. If this is more of your paranoid conspiracy theories about my husband, please, I interrupted. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. 5 minutes where you look at actual evidence instead of just believing what he tells you. Something in my tone must have registered, because she sat down across from me, arms crossed defensively. Fine. 5 minutes. I handed her the folder. Ryan Bennett is actually Ryan Blackwell. He changed his name after serving time in prison for fraud. Specifically, investment fraud targeting wealthy women. Charlotte's face paled as she opened the folder, but she quickly recovered. This could be anyone. It's a common name. Look at the photo on the booking record, I said gently. She did, and I saw the flicker of recognition before she masked it. This doesn't prove anything. People change. Maybe he made mistakes in the past. He's been married 3 times in the last 5 years, Char, I pressed. Each time to wealthy women who lost significant amounts of money before the relationships ended. So he's had bad luck in relationships, she countered, but her voice lacked conviction. That doesn't make him a criminal now. What about the fact that he's been systematically draining your trust fund, and mine, for investments that probably don't exist? I asked. What about marrying you after knowing you for just a few months, right around the time he would have discovered the existence of your inheritance? Charlotte stood abruptly, tossing the folder onto the coffee table. I think your 5 minutes are up. Char, please, I begged. I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm trying to protect you. From the man I love? She challenged. The man who finally sees me as more than just the impulsive twin? The man who believes in me? He doesn't love you, I said, the words spilling out before I could stop them. He loves your money. He's using you just like he used those other women. Charlotte's face hardened. Get out. No, I stood my ground. Not until you really look at what's in that folder. Not until you at least consider the possibility that he's not who he claims to be. The only person being dishonest here is you, she shot back. You've never liked Ryan. You've never supported my relationship. And now you've gone so far as to fabricate evidence against him because you can't stand to see me happy. The unfairness of her accusation stung, but I pushed forward. Then explain the withdrawals from my trust fund. Explain why you needed to take $500,000 without even asking me. She faltered for a moment. I told you, it was an investment. For both of us. In what, exactly? I challenged. Have you seen any business plans? Talked to any of these supposed investors or partners? Or do you just hand over the money when Ryan asks for it? Charlotte's silence was answer enough. When did you last speak to any of your friends? I asked more gently. When did you last do anything without Ryan's approval? Don't you see what's happening? He's isolating you, making you dependent on him, all while systematically taking everything. You have. Tears welled in her eyes. You don't understand. Then help me understand, I pleaded. She opened her mouth to respond, but the sound of a key in the lock silenced her. Her eyes widened in panic. He's back early, she whispered. And in that moment of fear, I saw the truth. My sister wasn't just in financial danger from Ryan Blackwell. She was afraid of him. She was afraid of... The apartment door swung open, and Ryan stepped in, his confident smile faltering when he saw me sitting with Charlotte. The folder with his criminal records lay open on the coffee table between us. Olivia, he said, recovering quickly. What a surprise. I thought we were meeting at noon. I stood, positioning myself slightly in front of Charlotte. Plans changed. His eyes darted to the folder, then back to my face. His expression remained neutral, but something dangerous flickered in his eyes. I see you've been busy. Ryan, Charlotte's voice was unnaturally high. Olivia was just leaving. I turned to her, searching her face. I don't have to go. Ryan moved further into the room, casually closing the apartment door behind him. The soft click of the lock engaging sent a chill down my spine. No, please stay, he said, his tone pleasant but his eyes cold. Let's resolve this situation once and for all. He walked over to the coffee table and picked up the folder, leafing through it with an air of mild curiosity. Impressive detective. Work. Harry's doing, I assume? Does it matter? I asked. It's all true, isn't it? You're a con man, a fraud. You've been targeting wealthy women for years. Ryan closed the folder and set it down. People make mistakes, Olivia. I paid my debt to society. I changed my name to start fresh. Is that so unforgivable? And the other marriages? I pressed. The other women you stole from? Charlotte made a small, distressed sound. I reached back and squeezed her hand, keeping my eyes on Ryan. He sighed dramatically. Complicated situations, all of them. Failed relationships happen all the time. But what I have with Charlotte is different. He turned to her, his expression softening. Tell her, darling. Tell your sister how happy we are. Charlotte's hand trembled in mine. We are happy, she said, but the words sounded rehearsed, hollow. See? Ryan smiled. Now about our agreement. Have you reconsidered your position on Charlotte's trust? I'm not signing anything, I said firmly. In fact, I'm taking Charlotte with me. Now. Ryan's smile disappeared. I don't think that's going to happen. It's not your decision, I replied. Charlotte is an adult. She can leave if she wants to. Charlotte, Ryan's voice took on a warning tone. Tell your sister you're staying right here with your husband. I felt my sister's grip tighten on my hand. You don't have to do what he says, I whispered. You can walk out that door with me right now. The tension in the room was suffocating. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Charlotte stepped forward, still holding my hand. I want to leave. The 3 words, spoken barely above a whisper, changed everything. Ryan's facade cracked, raw anger breaking through. You're not going anywhere, he snarled, lunging forward to grab Charlotte's arm. I reacted instinctively, shoving him back. Don't touch her! He stumbled, surprise flashing across his face before it hardened into cold fury. This is between me and my wife. Stay out of it. It stopped being just between you and Charlotte when you stole from me, I shot back. When you manipulated and isolated my sister, when you threatened her. Ryan laughed, a chilling sound. Threatened? Charlotte, tell your sister how absurd she's being. But Charlotte was already moving toward the door, pulling me with her. We're leaving, Ryan. If you walk out that door, he warned, don't expect to ever access that trust fund again. I'll make sure of it. Charlotte's step faltered, and I saw the fear in her eyes. Not just of him, but of losing everything. Of starting over with nothing. She doesn't need your permission, I told him. And as for the money, I control both trusts now. You've lost, Ryan. Game over. His face contorted with rage. You think you're so clever, both of you, the perfect Caldwell twins. He took a step toward us. This isn't over, not by a long shot. It is for today, I replied, reaching for the door handle. Charlotte, let's go. We stepped into the hallway, Ryan's fury following us like a physical force. I half expected him to chase after us, but the apartment door remained closed as we hurried to the elevator. Once inside, Charlotte collapsed against the wall, her body shaking with silent sobs. I wrapped my arms around her, holding her tight, as the elevator descended. It's okay, I murmured. You're safe now. I've got you. I'm so sorry, she gasped between sobs. So sorry, Liv. I didn't know. I thought he loved me. I thought... Shh, I soothed. We'll figure it all out, one step at a time. We made it to my car without incident, though I kept glancing back at the apartment building, half expecting to see Ryan charging after us. Charlotte was silent during the drive, staring out the window with vacant eyes, occasionally wiping away tears. I took her to my apartment, called Harry to update him, then made tea while Charlotte showered. When she emerged, wrapped in my bathrobe, looking small and vulnerable with her wet hair and makeup-free face, she seemed more like the sister I remembered. I feel so stupid, she said, curling up on my couch with the mug of tea I handed her. How did I not see it? How did I let this happen? He's a professional con man, I reminded her gently. He knows exactly what to say, how to make you trust him. But I stole from you, she whispered, fresh tears spilling. My own sister. I took your money for his schemes. How can you even look at me right now? I sat beside her, taking her free hand. Because you're my sister, my twin. We share more than just DNA, Char. We share a history, a bond. Nothing can break that, not even this. Her hand tightened around mine. I'll pay you back. Every penny, I swear. I know you will, I assured her. But that's not what matters right now. What matters is keeping you safe from Ryan. Charlotte's expression darkened. He won't just let this go, Liv. You don't know him like I do. When he doesn't get what he wants. Has he hurt you? I asked directly, dreading the answer. She hesitated. Not physically, not yet. But the threats, the control, the way he could go from charming to terrifying in an instant. She shuddered. It started small, questioning where I'd been, who I'd talked to, then criticizing my friends, my clothes, the way I spoke. Before I knew it, I was asking permission for everything. And the money. He always needed more money for the next big deal, the next opportunity that would solve everything. The familiar pattern of abuse made my heart ache. My vibrant, independent sister had been systematically broken down, isolated, controlled. We'll get a restraining order, I said decisively. And we'll start divorce proceedings immediately. Charlotte looked up, fear clear in her eyes. He'll fight it. He won't let go of access to the trust fund without a battle. Let him try, I replied with more confidence than I felt. The marriage clause in Grandpa's trust works in our favor now. He has no legal claim to your money. But we both knew the law wouldn't necessarily stop Ryan. Men like him didn't play by normal rules. And as the day wore on, my phone started buzzing, with increasingly threatening texts from him, confirming my worst fears. This wasn't over, it was just beginning. The first text came at 7:14 p.m. This doesn't end well for either of you if Charlotte doesn't come home. Now. I showed it to Charlotte, whose face drained of color. See? This is how it starts. The second text arrived minutes later. I know where you are, both of you. The third was just a photo, a picture of the outside of my apartment building, clearly taken that evening. We need to go, I said, already grabbing my purse and keys. He knows where I live. Where can we go? Charlotte asked, panic edging her voice. He'll just follow us, I thought quickly. Harry has a lake house about 2 hours north. We can go there tonight, regroup, figure out our next steps. He won't know to look for us there. Charlotte nodded, gathering the few things she'd brought. We were out the door within minutes, constantly checking over our shoulders as we hurried to my car. The drive to Harry's lake house was tense, Charlotte jumping at every set of headlights that appeared in the rearview mirror. I tried to keep her calm by talking through practical next steps, calling a divorce attorney, filing for a restraining order, potentially changing her phone number and email addresses. What about the money? She asked quietly, staring out at the darkening countryside. The money he already took from you? One problem at a time, I replied. First, we get you safely away from him. Then we deal with the financial fallout. When we arrived at the lake house, it was nearly 10 p.m. Harry had called ahead to his caretaker, who had turned on lights and the heating system for us. The house was rustic but comfortable, situated on a secluded stretch of shoreline with dense woods on 3 sides. No one will find us here, I assured Charlotte as we brought in our few belongings. We can stay as long as we need to. She nodded, but her eyes kept darting to the dark windows, as if expecting to see Ryan's face peering in at any moment. We tried to settle in, making a simple dinner from the supplies Harry's caretaker had stocked. In the fridge. Charlotte barely ate, pushing pasta around her plate, lost in thought. Tell me about when you met him, I said gently, hoping that talking might help her process what had happened. She set down her fork with a sigh. It was at that charity gala for the Children's Hospital back in October. Remember? You were supposed to go with me, but you had that design client emergency. I nodded, feeling a twinge of guilt. If I had been there that night, would things have turned out differently? He was charming, attentive. made me feel like I was the only person in the room. A sad smile crossed her face. Now I realize that's literally his playbook. Identify a target, isolate her, make her feel special. What did he tell you about himself? I asked. That he was a successful entrepreneur, that he'd built and sold several companies, that he was looking for the right investment opportunity and the right partner to share his life with. She laughed, bitterly. God, it sounds so obvious now, but he had answers for everything, explanations that seemed reasonable at the time. And the quick marriage? Charlotte's eyes filled with tears. He said life was short, that when you find the right person you shouldn't wait, that it was romantic, spontaneous. She wiped at her cheeks. The real reason, of course, was to get access to my trust fund as quickly as possible. When did he first ask about money? I pressed gently. 3 weeks after the wedding. Said he had a time-sensitive investment opportunity, but his assets were tied up in another venture. Just needed a loan until things cleared. I gave him $50,000 from my personal savings. She shook her head. It seemed so reasonable. He was my husband. Of course I would help him. And then? Then it was another opportunity. And another. Each one bigger. Each one supposedly more lucrative. When my savings were gone, he started asking about other resources. That's when I mentioned the trust. She looked at me, shame in her eyes. He was so excited when he heard about it. Should have been my first clue. But you didn't have full access, I prompted. No, just the quarterly disbursements. When he realized that, he was different, cold, angry. Started talking about how we needed more capital now, not in tiny increments. She hugged herself. That's when I remembered that Harry had said siblings could access each other's trusts in certain circumstances. I didn't know exactly what that meant, but I mentioned it to Ryan. And he convinced you to try it, I finished for her. She nodded. He said it would just be a short-term loan, that you'd never even notice because we'd return it with interest before you knew it was gone. The betrayal still stung, but seeing Charlotte now, broken, frightened, ashamed, I couldn't hold on to my anger. She had been manipulated by a master, manipulator, targeted precisely because of her trusting nature. The important thing, I said, reaching across the table to take her hand, is that you're away from him now, and we'll figure out the rest together. She squeezed my hand. I don't deserve your help, Liv. Not after what I did. That's not how family works, I told her firmly. We help each other, even when, especially when, one of us makes a mistake. We cleaned up dinner and tried to relax, though both of us kept checking our phones. Ryan had sent several more threatening texts, each one more aggressive than the last. I finally turned both our phones off, promising Charlotte we'd check them in the morning. Try to get some sleep, I urged, showing her to one of the bedrooms. We're safe here. But as I lay in my own bed later, staring at the ceiling, I wasn't so sure. Men like Ryan didn't give up easily. He had lost access to millions of dollars, money he had clearly been counting on. People had done far worse, for far less. A soft knock on my door startled me. Charlotte peeked in, her face pale in the moonlight streaming through the window. Can't. Sleep? I asked. She shook her head. Every noise. I keep thinking it's him. I shifted over, making room for her in the bed, just like when we were children and one of us had a nightmare. She crawled in beside me, and we lay there in silence for a while. What happens now? She finally whispered. How do I start over after this? One day at a time, I replied, the answer inadequate but honest. First, we legally separate you from Ryan, then we figure out the financial damage and how to repair it. And if he comes after us? The fear in her voice was palpable. We'll be ready, I promised, though I had no idea what that might entail. We're not alone in this, Char. We have Harry, legal resources, money to protect ourselves. She was quiet. For so long I thought she might have fallen asleep. Then, barely audible. I'm afraid, Liv. Not just of what he might do, but of who I became with him. How easily I let him change me, control me. How do I trust myself again after this? The question hung in the darkness between us, weighty and raw. I had no easy answer, no quick fix to offer. The same way you do everything else, I finally said. One day at a time. And you won't be doing it alone. Eventually, Charlotte's breathing deepened into sleep, but I remained awake, watching shadows move across the ceiling, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the lake house settling. My phone, though turned off, seemed to vibrate with phantom texts from Ryan, threats I couldn't read but could imagine all too clearly. Morning would bring practical challenges, lawyers to call, restraining orders to file, plans to make. But the night stretched before me, long and uncertain, filled with worries about what Ryan might do next. Because men like him didn't simply disappear when they lost access to what they wanted. They escalated. Morning brought rain, soft and steady against the windows of the lake house. I woke to find Charlotte's side of the bed empty, a moment of panic gripping me until I heard sounds from the kitchen. The clatter of a pan, the quiet hiss of coffee, brewing. Normal sounds, safe sounds. I found her making pancakes, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, wearing clothes she'd borrowed from me. For a moment, we could have been teenagers again, at our parents' vacation home, before trusts and marriages and betrayals complicated everything. You're cooking, I observed, the simple act surprising given yesterday's trauma. She gave a small shrug. Needed to feel useful, normal. She flipped a pancake with mechanical precision. Also, I couldn't sleep past 5, too much on my mind. I nodded, pouring myself coffee from the fresh pot. We should turn our phones back on, check in with Harry. Charlotte? Tensed but nodded. I know. We sat at the kitchen table with our pancakes and coffee, both phones placed between us like unexploded ordnance. I turned mine on first. Immediately, notifications flooded the screen. Missed calls, texts, voicemails. Many from Ryan, but also several from Harry, and even one from the bank's trust department. I checked Harry's messages first. Ryan came to my office this morning demanding to know where you are. I told him nothing. Be careful. And another, sent just 30 minutes ago. Filed emergency restraining order based on texts he sent you. Police looking for him now? Stay where you are? We'll call with updates. Charlotte's hand trembled as she turned on her own phone. More than 50 texts and 20 missed calls from Ryan. She scrolled through them, her face paling. He's getting worse, she whispered, turning the screen so I could see. The progression was alarming. Early messages pleaded for her to return, promised forgiveness, claimed love. Later ones turned threatening, not just to Charlotte but to me, to Harry, to anyone helping her. The most recent ones contained explicit details of what he planned to do when he found her. We need to call the police, I said, taking the phone from her. These are criminal threats. Harry already did, she reminded me, her voice hollow. They're looking for him. I dialed Harry's number, putting him on speaker when he answered. Are you both all right? He asked immediately. Yes, I replied. We're safe, but Ryan's texts are getting increasingly violent. What exactly did the police say? They've issued a warrant for his arrest based on the threats and his criminal history, Harry explained. They went to his apartment this morning, but he wasn't there. They're searching for him now. Charlotte's eyes widened. He's gone? Where would he go? That's what we need to figure out, Harry replied grimly. Is there anywhere he mentioned frequently? A place he might feel safe? Charlotte shook her head. He never talked much about his past, always deflected when I asked specific questions. She paused, thinking. The only place he mentioned repeatedly was some property he claimed to own in Vermont, a cabin where we'd Build our future, he said. Do you have an address? Harry pressed. No, but I know it's near Stowe. He showed me pictures once. It's something, Harry said. I'll pass it along to the detective. In the meantime, stay at the lake house. It's remote, and only a handful of people know about it. After we hung up, Charlotte stared into her coffee cup. I can't believe this is happening. We'll get through it, I assured her, though uncertainty gnawed at me. The police will find him. And then what? She asked bleakly. A restraining order is just a piece of paper, Liv. It won't stop him if he's determined. She wasn't wrong. I'd heard too many stories of protection orders failing to protect, of determined abusers finding their victims despite legal interventions. One step at a time, I reminded her. First, let's call that divorce attorney Harry recommended. We spent the morning on practical matters, Charlotte speaking with the lawyer, me contacting the bank to freeze any additional withdrawals from either trust, both of us providing statements to the police through a detective who called to follow up on Harry's report. Around noon, Charlotte's phone rang with an unfamiliar number. She answered cautiously, putting it on speaker. Mrs. Bennet? A woman's voice, professional but warm. Yes? Charlotte replied, her maiden name feeling too dangerous to correct. This is Detective Morgan with the County Sheriff's Department. I understand you've filed a report about threatening behavior from your husband, Ryan Bennett, also known as Ryan Blackwell. That's right, Charlotte confirmed. I'm calling to let you know we've located Mr. Bennett's vehicle at a bus station in Albany. Security footage shows him boarding a bus to Boston early this morning. Charlotte and I exchanged glances. Albany was in the opposite direction from the lake house, nearly 3 hours south. Do you know anyone in Boston he might contact? The detective asked. No, Charlotte replied, but he mentioned business connections there occasionally. We've alerted Boston PD, Detective Morgan continued. But given his history and the nature of his threats, we recommend you remain in a secure location until he's in custody. After the call ended, Charlotte sagged with visible relief. He's headed away from us. That's good, right? I nodded, though something felt off. It seems convenient that they found his car so easily. What do you mean? Charlotte frowned. Ryan is smart. Calculating. Would he really leave his car somewhere it could be immediately traced to him? Take a bus that has security cameras and a passenger manifest? Charlotte's expression fell as she followed my logic. You think it's a fake-out, that he wants the police looking in Boston while he's actually somewhere else? It's what I would do, I admitted. Lead them on a false trail while I pursued my real target. Us, Charlotte whispered. I didn't confirm the obvious. Instead, I walked to the window, scanning the tree line that surrounded the property. The rain had stopped, leaving everything draped in mist, the lake barely visible through the fog. We should check the security system, I said. Make sure all the doors and windows are secured. The lake house had a basic alarm system, not state-of-the-art, but enough to alert us if any entry point was breached. We systematically went through the house, checking each door and window, setting the alarm for the perimeter. I feel like I'm in a horror movie, Charlotte said with a nervous laugh as we finished. The isolated cabin, the fog, the escaped villain. Except in horror movies, the women always make stupid decisions, I replied, trying to lighten the mood. Like splitting up or investigating strange noises alone. Promise we won't do either, she said, only half joking. Promise. We tried to settle into a normal afternoon, aware of the abnormality of our situation. Charlotte found a deck of cards in a drawer, and we played gin rummy like we used to during family vacations, the familiar rhythm of the game providing a small comfort. The detective called again around 4, updating us that the Boston police had surveillance footage of someone matching Ryan's description checking into a hotel near South Station. They were closing in, she assured us. See? Charlotte said after we hung up. Maybe we're worrying for nothing. Maybe he really did run to Boston. I wanted to believe it. Wanted to think that Ryan had decided to cut his losses and flee rather than risk returning to prison. But the knot of unease in my stomach wouldn't dissolve. As evening approached, the fog thickened, transforming the landscape into something otherworldly. The trees nearest the house were barely visible, the lake completely obscured. We made dinner from the supplies in the kitchen, checked in with Harry once more, and tried to distract ourselves with a movie on the small TV in the living room. Neither of us was really watching, both too attuned to every creak of the house, every rustle outside. It was just after 9 when the power went out. The house plunged into darkness, the TV screen going black, the ambient hum of electronics silenced. Charlotte's hand found mine, squeezing tight. "It's probably just the storm," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "There's a flashlight in the kitchen drawer." We made our way there carefully, using our phone flashlights to navigate. I found the larger flashlight and switched it on, casting a stronger beam around the silent kitchen. "The alarm system has a battery backup," I reminded Charlotte. "It's still working." As if in response to my words, a high-pitched beep sounded from the security panel near the front door. We hurried over to check it, the flashlight beam bouncing eerily off the walls. The panel displayed a simple message: "Communication error." "What does that mean?" Charlotte asked, her voice tight. "It means the system can't connect to the monitoring service," I explained, dread pooling in my stomach. "Probably because the phone line is down." "The storm," Charlotte suggested hopefully. But we both knew better. The timing was too perfect, too calculated. "Get your shoes and coat," I whispered, pointing the flashlight toward the back of the house. "We need to get to the car." The realization hit us simultaneously. We weren't alone anymore. Ryan had found us. We moved quietly through the darkened house. The flashlight beam kept low to avoid being seen from outside. Charlotte's breathing was shallow and quick beside me, fear made tangible in the small sounds she couldn't suppress. "The car keys are in my purse," I whispered. "In the bedroom." We changed direction, heading down the hallway toward the room we'd shared the night before. Every shadow seemed to conceal a threat, every gentle creak of the house a warning. In the bedroom, I found my purse on the nightstand and dug through it for the keys. My fingers closed around them just as a new sound reached us, the unmistakable click of the front door's lock being manipulated. Charlotte froze, her eyes wide with terror in the flashlight's glow. "He's inside," she mouthed silently. I switched, off the flashlight, plunging us into darkness. Moonlight filtered weakly through the window, barely illuminating the outlines of furniture. "The bathroom," I whispered, pulling Charlotte toward the ensuite. "Lock the door." She shook her head frantically. "We can't hide. We need to get out." She was right. Hiding would only delay the inevitable. If Ryan was inside, he would search every room until he found us. The window, I decided, moving toward it. The bedroom was on the ground floor, with a small flower bed directly beneath the window. "We can get to the car that way." I unlocked the window and eased it open, wincing at the slight squeak. Outside, the fog had thinned somewhat, the moon, occasionally visible through breaks in the clouds. The gravel driveway where we'd parked was about 30 yards away, across an open stretch of lawn. "You first?" I urged Charlotte, helping her onto the windowsill. She hesitated, looking back at me. "Together," she insisted. "I'm not leaving you behind." Before I could argue, a floorboard creaked in the hallway outside the bedroom. We both froze, listening to the slow, deliberate footsteps approaching. "Go," I mouthed urgently, practically pushing Charlotte through the window. She dropped to the ground outside with a soft thud. I scrambled to follow, one leg over the sill when the bedroom door swung open. The beam of a powerful flashlight blinded me momentarily. When my vision cleared, Ryan stood in the doorway, his face transformed by rage and something worse, a cold, calculating determination. "Hello, Olivia," he said, his voice unnervingly calm. "Where's my wife?" I swung my other leg over the sill, prepared to drop to the ground, but Ryan was faster. He crossed the room in 2 quick strides and grabbed my arm, yanking me back inside, with enough force to send me sprawling onto the bedroom floor. "Charlotte, run!" I shouted, hoping my sister would flee to the car, drive for help. But Charlotte's face appeared at the window instead, her features contorted with fear and indecision. "There you are," Ryan said, swinging the flashlight toward her. "Come inside, Charlotte, now." "Don't," I warned her, scrambling to my feet. "Get to the car. Get help." Ryan's grip closed around my upper arm again, painful enough to make me gasp. "If you run, Charlotte, your sister will regret it. I promise you that." The threat hung in the air, its implications clear. Charlotte's gaze met mine, anguish evident even in the dim light. "It's okay," I told her, though it wasn't. "Go." For a moment, she hesitated. Then, with a look of resolve I hadn't seen on her face in months, she disappeared from the window. Ryan cursed, his fingers digging deeper into my arm. "Bad choice," he hissed. I heard the crunch of gravel, then the sound of a car engine starting. Relief flooded through me. Charlotte had made it to the car. She was getting away. Ryan dragged me toward the hallway. "Let's go welcome your sister home, shall we?" "She's gone," I said, trying to wrench free of his grip. "You've lost Ryan." His laugh was cold, devoid of humor. "You think I came here unprepared?" He pulled me into the living room, toward the front windows that overlooked the driveway. "Watch." Outside, the headlights of my car illuminated the fog as Charlotte attempted to navigate the winding driveway that led to the main road. But something was wrong. The car moved erratically, slower than it should. "What did you do?" I demanded. Ryan's smile was visible in the dim light. "Slashed a tire. Not enough to be immediately noticeable, but enough that it won't get far." He turned the flashlight on my face, blinding me again. I had plenty of time to prepare while you two thought you were so cleverly hidden away. The realization was sickening. "You knew we were here all along." "Of course I did. Did you really think that idiot Harry would outsmart me?" Ryan scoffed. "I followed him up here last month when he came to open the place for the season. Remote lake house, limited access road, perfect place to have a private conversation with my wife and her interfering sister." Outside, the car had slowed to a crawl, the front end listing to one side as the damaged tire gave way. "Your mistake was underestimating me," Ryan continued, dragging me toward the front door. "Everyone does. Those cops think I'm in Boston, right? Now checking into a hotel. Amazing what people will do for the right amount of cash." The implications were terrifying. Ryan had planned this meticulously, creating a false trail to lead law enforcement away while he came after us. And we had walked right into his trap. "What do you want?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "What's rightfully mine?" he replied. "Access to the trusts, both of them." "Never going to happen," I said, with more bravado than I felt. Ryan's grip tightened painfully. "We'll see about that." Outside, the car had stopped completely, about halfway down the driveway. The headlights remained on, illuminating the swirling fog. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the driver's door opened and Charlotte emerged, her silhouette barely visible in the mist. "Smart girl," Ryan murmured. "She knows the rules." Of the game? But Charlotte didn't walk back toward the house as he clearly expected. Instead, she took off running toward the main road, quickly disappearing into the fog and darkness. Ryan's composure cracked. "Stupid bitch," he snarled, yanking me toward the door. "Guess we're going hunting." Fear and determination warred within me. Charlotte had a chance to escape, to get help. All I needed to do was slow Ryan down, keep him occupied long enough for her to reach the main road. As he fumbled with the door lock, still gripping my arm with one hand, I saw my opportunity. I drove my elbow back as hard as I could, catching him in the solar plexus. His breath left him in a pained whoosh, his grip loosening just enough for me to wrench free. I ran for the kitchen, mind racing. The back door was closer than the windows, but also locked and alarmed. No time for that. I needed a weapon, something to defend myself. Behind me, Ryan recovered quickly, his footsteps heavy as he pursued. "That was stupid, Olivia," he called, his voice echoing through the dark house. "You're only making this worse for yourself." I reached the kitchen and frantically pulled open drawers, searching for anything I could use. My hand closed around a heavy chef's knife just as Ryan appeared in the doorway, his flashlight beam finding me instantly. "Put that down," he ordered, taking a step toward me. "You don't want to do something you'll regret." I gripped the knife tightly, pointing it toward him. "Stay back. The police know where we are. They're on their way." Ryan laughed, the sound chilling in the darkness. "No, they don't. They think I'm in Boston, remember? No one is coming to save you, Olivia. No one even knows you're in danger." He was right, and we both knew it. Charlotte might reach the road, might eventually find help, but that could take hours. Hours I didn't have. "What do you want from me?" I asked, buying time, my mind racing. "For a plan." "I told you," Ryan replied, taking another step closer. "Access to the trusts. Just sign the papers transferring control back to Charlotte, and this can all be over. So you can steal the rest of our money?" "Never." His expression hardened. "Then we do this the hard way." He lunged forward suddenly, faster than I anticipated. I slashed with the knife, catching his arm, drawing a pained hiss from him, but not stopping his momentum. His body crashed into mine, sending us both to the floor, the knife skittering away across the tile. And as we struggled in the darkness, one thought consumed me. Charlotte had to get away. She had to find help. Because if Ryan won this fight, neither of us would survive to see morning. Ryan outweighed me by at least 60 pounds, all of it now pressing down as we grappled on the kitchen floor. His flashlight had rolled away, casting wild shadows across the ceiling as we fought. I clawed at his face, connecting with enough force to make him recoil momentarily. That split second was all I needed to slam my knee upward, catching him in the groin. He howled in pain, rolling off me. I scrambled away, searching desperately for the knife in the semi-darkness, but Ryan recovered quickly, grabbing my ankle and yanking me back toward him. "You're going to regret that," he snarled, his voice tight with pain and rage. My hand closed around the handle of a heavy cast-iron skillet that had fallen from the counter during our struggle. Without hesitation, I swung it with all my strength, connecting with the side of Ryan's head. The impact sent a jarring shock up my arm, but Ryan crumpled instantly, his grip on my ankle going slack. I froze, the skillet still clutched in my hand, watching for any movement. Ryan lay motionless on the kitchen floor, a dark stain spreading slowly beneath his head. Had I killed him? The thought sent a wave of nausea through me. I forced myself to kneel beside him, placing trembling fingers against his neck. A pulse. Faint, but steady. He was alive, just unconscious. Relief washed over me, quickly followed by urgent purpose. I didn't know how long he would remain unconscious. I needed to restrain him, call for help, find Charlotte. I ran to the utility room off the kitchen, searching frantically in the beam of the recovered flashlight until I found what I needed. A coil of sturdy rope used for securing the dock. Returning to Ryan, I rolled him onto his stomach and bound his hands behind his back, then secured his ankles together, using every knot I could remember from childhood sailing lessons. Once he was restrained, I searched his pockets, finding his phone, a set of unfamiliar keys, and, my blood ran cold, a small handgun. I set the gun carefully on the counter, far out of his reach, then grabbed his phone. No signal. Of course not. He'd mentioned disabling the landline, and cell service at the lake house had always been spotty at best. I needed to find Charlotte, to get to the main road where we might have reception. I pulled on my coat and grabbed the flashlight, casting one last glance at Ryan's still form before heading out the front door. The fog had thickened again, reducing visibility to just a few feet. The headlights of my disabled car still shone weakly through the mist, creating an eerie corridor of light down the driveway. "Charlotte!" I called, my voice seeming to be swallowed by the fog. "Charlotte, it's me! He's restrained!" No answer. Just the soft drip of condensation from the trees and the distant lapping of the lake against the shore. Which way would she have gone? The main road was about half a mile from the house, accessible only by the winding gravel driveway. In this fog with no flashlight, Charlotte might have become disoriented, veered off into the woods. Dread settled in my stomach as I started down the driveway, sweeping the flashlight beam back and forth, searching for any sign of my sister. The gravel crunched beneath my feet, too loud in the silent night, announcing my presence to anyone, or anything, lurking in the fog. "Charlotte," I called again, more urgently. "Answer me, please." A sound to my right, a branch snapping perhaps, or a footstep. I swung the flashlight toward it, heart pounding. The beam caught nothing but trees and swirling mist. I continued down the driveway, passing my car with its flat tire. The driver's door still hung open, interior light casting a feeble glow. I peered inside, finding Charlotte's phone on the passenger seat. No help there. No. Another sound, closer this time. I spun around, focusing the flashlight on a cluster of pine trees near the edge of the drive. "Charlotte?" I whispered, hope and fear mingling in my voice. "Is that you?" A figure stumbled out of the trees. Charlotte, her clothes torn, face scratched, but gloriously, wonderfully alive. "Liv!" she gasped, rushing toward me. "I heard you calling. I got lost in the woods trying to find the road." I pulled her into a fierce hug, relief making my knees weak. "Are you okay? Are you hurt?" "Just scratches," she assured me, pulling back to search my face. "What about you? Where's Ryan?" "Unconscious, tied up in the kitchen." I gestured with the flashlight back toward the house. "I hit him with a skillet." A fragile laugh escaped her. "You what?" "I know. Very cliché." I smiled despite everything. "But it worked. Come on, we need to get to the main road, find cell service, call the police." We started up the driveway together, Charlotte leaning slightly against me, clearly exhausted from her ordeal in the woods. "I was so scared," she admitted quietly. "When he grabbed you in the bedroom, I almost came back. But then I thought if I could just get help." "You did the right thing," I assured her. "If you hadn't run, we'd both be at his mercy right now." We were about halfway back to the house when Charlotte suddenly stiffened beside me. "Liv," she whispered, clutching my arm. "The front door." I raised the flashlight, its beam cutting through the fog to illuminate the house ahead. The front door stood wide open, light from inside spilling onto the porch. My blood turned to ice. "I closed that door," I said. "I know I did." We stopped, both of us staring at the open door, its implication clear and terrifying. Ryan was free. "The woods," Charlotte hissed, already turning. "We can circle around to the main road." But before we could move, a figure stepped onto the porch, silhouetted against the light from inside. Even from this distance, I could see the gun in his hand. The same one I'd taken from his pocket and foolishly left on the counter. "Ladies," Ryan's voice carried through the fog, unnaturally calm despite the blood I could now see staining the side of his face. "I think it's time we finished our discussion, don't you?" Charlotte's hand found mine, squeezing so tightly it hurt. "Run," she whispered. I shook my head minutely. "He has a gun. He'll shoot us in the back." Ryan began walking down the porch steps, his movement slightly unsteady but purposeful. "I have to hand it to you, Olivia. That was quite a hit. But you should have checked the knots more carefully, or used something other than old frayed rope. He was right." I should have been more thorough, more careful. But there was no time for regrets now. "What do you want, Ryan?" I called, playing for time, desperately trying to formulate a plan. "I've told you repeatedly what I want," he replied, continuing his slow approach. "The trust funds. All of them. Now." "Even if we wanted to give them to you," Charlotte said, her voice surprisingly steady, "we can't do it from here. We'd need to go to the bank, sign papers." Ryan smiled, the expression ghoulish with the blood trailing down his face. "That's why you're coming with me, both of you. We'll take a little trip to the city in the morning, visit the bank together. One big, happy family." He was close enough now that I could see his eyes, cold and calculating despite the obvious concussion. The gun in his hand was steady, pointed directly at us. "And if we refuse?" I asked, though I knew the answer. Ryan's smile widened. "Then I only need one of you alive to access the trusts. Guess which one I'll choose." The threat hung in the air between us, its meaning crystal clear. Ryan would kill me without hesitation if it meant keeping Charlotte, and her access to the money, alive. "Okay," I said, raising my hand slowly. "You win. We'll go to the bank in the morning. Just put the gun down." Ryan laughed. "Nice try. Now both of you, back to the house." Slowly. We had no choice but to obey, turning reluctantly toward the house, Ryan following a few paces behind, the gun trained on our backs. Charlotte trembled beside me, but her steps were determined. "It's going to be okay," I whispered to her, though I had no right to make such a promise. "I know," she whispered back, and something in her tone made me glance at her face. Her expression wasn't fearful anymore. It was resolute, determined, as if she'd made a decision. "Charlotte," I began, a warning in my voice. "Don't—" But it was too late. In one fluid motion, Charlotte spun around and charged directly at Ryan, a banshee scream tearing from her throat. The gunshot that followed shattered the night like thunder, time slowed to a crawl as the gunshot echoed across the lake. I screamed Charlotte's name, lunging forward without thought, without plan, pure instinct driving me to protect my sister. But Charlotte was still moving, still charging toward Ryan. The shot had gone wild, his concussion affecting his aim. She slammed into him with the full force of her body, sending them both crashing to the ground. I was only steps behind her, diving onto Ryan's gun arm, pinning it to the gravel. Charlotte straddled his chest, her hands locked around his throat, rage and fear contorting her features into something almost unrecognizable. "You won't hurt us anymore," she hissed, fingers tightening. "Never again." Ryan bucked beneath us, surprisingly strong despite his injury. His free hand clawed at Charlotte's face, drawing blood from her cheek. I slammed my knee into his wrist, forcing his hand to open, the gun falling from his grasp. I kicked it away into the fog, then focused on restraining Ryan's flailing arm. Charlotte maintained her grip on his throat, her entire body trembling with the effort and emotion. "Charlotte," I gasped, seeing the dangerous intensity in her eyes. "Don't kill him, he's not worth it." For a terrible moment, I thought she wouldn't listen, that her rage would push her past the point of no return. Then, slowly, her grip loosened. Not completely, but enough that Ryan's desperate gasping filled the night air. "We need to tie him." "Up again," I said, thinking quickly. "Properly this time." Charlotte nodded, still perched on Ryan's chest, keeping him pinned. "With what?" I glanced around frantically, then remembered. "My belt. Your belt. And check if he has anything in his pockets we can use." While Charlotte kept him restrained, I removed my leather belt and secured his wrists together, this time in front of his body where I could see them. Charlotte found a bundle of zip ties in his coat pocket, brought, no doubt, to restrain us, which we used to bind his ankles. Ryan had stopped struggling, his eyes glassy with pain and defeat. The side of his face where I'd hit him with the skillet was swollen and discolored, blood matting his hair. "We need to call the police," Charlotte said, her voice hoarse from exertion. His phone had no signal, I replied. And yours is in the car. We need to get to the main road. We can't leave him here, she argued. He might escape again. She was right. Despite our improved restraints, Ryan had already proven resourceful enough to free himself once. We couldn't risk it happening again. We'll have to move him, I decided. Back to the house, where we can secure him better until help arrives. It took both of us to drag Ryan's resistant form back up the driveway to the house. He was semi-cooperative, seeming to understand that fighting would only make things worse for him, but he wasn't helping either. Inside, we secured him to a heavy wooden chair in the kitchen, using more zip ties to fasten his already bound wrists to the chair arms. A final zip tie around his chest and the chair back ensured he couldn't stand or move the chair easily. One of us needs to stay with him, I said, wiping sweat from my forehead. While the other goes for help? I'll stay, Charlotte volunteered immediately. You're faster, and you know these roads better. You'll find signal quicker. I hesitated, looking between my sister and the man who had terrorized her. Are you sure? After everything he's done? Charlotte's gaze hardened as she looked at Ryan. I'm sure. He can't hurt me anymore. She turned back to me. Besides, you're the one who knocked him out with a skillet. I think I'm safer with him than you are. Despite everything, a small laugh escaped me. Fair point. I found a heavy flashlight with fresh batteries in a kitchen drawer and a road map of the area in the glove compartment of my disabled car. The main road was about half a mile away, and the nearest town with a police station was another 5 miles beyond that. If I couldn't get cell signal, I'd have to go all the way there on foot. I'll be as quick as I can, I promised Charlotte, hugging her tightly. Absolutely no heroics while I'm gone, okay? Both of you just stay put. She nodded, her expression grim but determined. We'll be here. I left them in the kitchen, Charlotte seated across from Ryan, a butcher knife displayed prominently on the table between them. Not a threat exactly, but a clear warning. Outside, the fog was finally beginning to lift, the moon occasionally visible through breaks in the clouds. I set off down the driveway at a jog, conserving energy for what might be a long journey ahead. At the main road, I immediately checked Ryan's phone. Still no signal. I turned right, heading toward town, keeping a steady pace despite the growing ache in my legs. Every few hundred yards, I checked the phone. Nothing. 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 Finally, about a mile down the road, a single bar of service appeared. I nearly cried with relief, immediately dialing 911. 911, what's your emergency? The dispatcher's calm voice was the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard. My name is Olivia Caldwell, I said, trying to control my breathing. I'm at a lake house, on Pinewood Drive. My sister and I have been attacked by her husband. We have him restrained, but we need police immediately. Are you or your sister injured? The dispatcher asked. Minor injuries only, I replied. But he had a gun. He fired at us. Officers are being dispatched now, she assured me. Can you safely return to the house and stay on the line? Yes, I said, already turning back. I'm heading there now. The dispatcher stayed on the line as I jogged back toward the lake house, asking questions about Ryan, about our location, about the events of the night. I answered as clearly as I could, lungs burning from exertion and lingering fear. As I turned onto the private driveway leading to the house, a wave of exhaustion hit me. The adrenaline that had kept me going was beginning to ebb, leaving me shaky and lightheaded. But I pushed forward, the thought of Charlotte alone with Ryan spurring me on. The house came into view, lights still blazing from when Ryan had restored the power. Everything looked calm, normal even from the outside. I relayed this to the dispatcher as I approached the front door. Police should be arriving in approximately 10 minutes, she informed me. Can you see your sister and the suspect from where you are? Not yet, I replied, pushing open the front door. I'm entering the house now. I stepped into the entryway, calling out, "Charlotte? It's me. Police are on the way." No response. The silence was wrong, heavy with foreboding. I moved further into the house, toward the kitchen, the phone still pressed to my ear. "Something's wrong," I told the dispatcher, my voice dropping to a whisper. "It's too quiet. Miss Caldwell, if you believe you're in danger, please exit the house and wait for police," the dispatcher urged. But I couldn't leave, not without knowing Charlotte was safe. I rounded the corner into the kitchen and froze at the threshold. The chair where we'd secured Ryan stood empty, zip ties sliced cleanly through, scattered on the floor. The butcher knife was missing from the table, and there was blood, a small puddle of it on the tile floor, with smeared tracks leading toward the back door. "They're gone," I told the dispatcher, panic rising in my throat. "The chair is empty. There's blood. I don't know whose it is." "Ms. Caldwell, please exit the house immediately," the dispatcher said firmly. "Officers will arrive shortly. It is not safe for you to search the premises." She was right. Logically, I knew that. But logic had no place in this moment. This was my sister, my twin. If she was hurt, if Ryan had somehow overpowered her. "I have to find her," I said, already moving toward the back door. "I'm sorry." I ended the call despite the dispatcher's protests, silencing the phone so it wouldn't give away my position. Outside the back door, the blood trail continued, faint but visible in the moonlight, leading toward the lake. Heart pounding, I followed, it, moving as silently as possible through the underbrush. The path wound down a gentle slope, through a stand of pine trees, emerging at the small dock that extended about 20 feet into the water. And there, at the end of the dock, 2 figures stood silhouetted against the moonlit lake. One was Ryan, his posture unsteady, but threatening. The other was Charlotte, balanced precariously at the very edge of the dock. The butcher knife clutched in her hand, pointed toward Ryan. They appeared to be locked in some kind of standoff, neither moving, both poised at the brink of violence. I couldn't hear what they were saying from this distance, but their body language spoke of ultimate confrontation. I had to get closer, had to help Charlotte, but I needed to be careful. One wrong move could send the situation spiraling into tragedy. Keeping low, I began to make my way toward the dock, praying that police would arrive in time, and that Charlotte could keep herself safe for just a few minutes more. Because the look in Ryan's eyes, visible even from here, told me he had nothing left to lose, and men with nothing to lose were capable of anything. I crept toward the dock, staying low among the reeds that lined the shore. The night air carried fragments of Ryan and Charlotte's voices across the water. "Have nothing left," Charlotte was saying, her voice stronger than I expected. "No money, no future. It's over, Ryan." "It's not over until I say it's over," he replied, taking a step toward her. The dock creaked under his weight. "I've come too far to walk away now." Charlotte raised the knife higher, her stance unwavering. "Stay back. I won't hesitate this time." The moonlight reflected off something metallic in Ryan's hand. Not a gun, I realized with relief, but what looked like a boat key. Of course. The lake house had a small motorboat docked on the other side of the pier, out of my line of sight. Ryan was planning to escape by water. I needed to act before he could force Charlotte onto that boat, or worse, harm her and flee alone. The police were still minutes away, if they could even find this secluded spot quickly. Moving silently along the shoreline, I positioned myself at the base of the dock. From here, I could rush onto the wooden planks if necessary, but Ryan couldn't see me unless he turned around. "Charlotte?" Ryan's voice had taken on that persuasive tone I'd heard when he first arrived at the house. "Think about this. You and I could still make this work. We just need to start over, somewhere new. I know people who can help us disappear. New identities, new life." "You're insane," Charlotte replied flatly. I'm not going anywhere with you. You don't have a choice, Ryan snapped, his persuasive tone vanishing. Either you come with me now, or I'll make sure your sister pays the price. I know people, Charlotte. People who do jobs for money. One phone call from me, and Olivia has an accident, a break-in gone wrong, a car crash. How long do you think she'll last if I really want her gone? My blood ran cold at the threat, but Charlotte didn't flinch. You won't get the chance, she said. The police already know everything. Harry knows everything. Your face will be on every news station by morning. You'll never access our money. And you'll never hurt anyone again. Ryan lunged forward suddenly, grabbing for the knife. Charlotte slashed defensively, catching his arm. He howled in pain but managed to grasp her wrist, twisting until she cried out, and the knife clattered to the dock. I burst from my hiding place, charging down the wooden planks. Get away from her! Ryan spun toward me, momentarily startled, still, gripping Charlotte's wrist. In that split second of distraction, Charlotte brought her knee up hard into his groin. He doubled over, releasing her. She scrambled to retrieve the knife, but Ryan recovered quickly, his foot lashing out to kick it into the water with a soft splash. Now, unarmed, Charlotte backed toward the end of the dock, with Ryan between her and escape. I continued forward, preparing to tackle him if necessary, to buy Charlotte time to get around him and run. But Ryan was done playing games. From his pocket, he produced a small object that glinted in the moonlight. A second knife, smaller than the butcher knife, but just as deadly. Both Caldwell sisters, he said, a manic grin spreading across his face. How convenient. One tragic boating accident, 2 bodies never recovered, and all their money safely transferred before their untimely deaths. He advanced on us, the knife, extended. Charlotte and I retreated until we stood side by side at the very end of the dock, nowhere left to go but into the cold, dark lake. It was never going to work, Ryan, I said, desperate to keep him talking, to buy time for the police to arrive. The trusts are ironclad. Even if you killed us, you'd never get the money. You think I haven't planned for that? He scoffed. Signed, transfer authorizations, backdated documents. It's already in motion. All I need is a little time to disappear before your bodies are found. Charlotte's hand found mine, squeezing tight. We were out of options, out of space, out of time. If we jump, she whispered, so softly only I could hear. We might be able to swim under the dock, hide until help comes. The water would be frigid, the lake bottom muddy and tangled with weeds. But it was our only chance. On 3, I breathed back. Ryan must have sensed our intent. He rushed forward, knife raised. Don't even think about it. 1, Charlotte whispered. Ryan, close the distance. Just steps away now. 2, I counted. His hand reached for Charlotte's arm, the knife arcing toward us. 3, we jumped in unison, just as we had done countless times as children, our hands still clasped, bodies plunging into the icy water. The shock of cold stole my breath, darkness enveloping us as we sank below the surface. I kicked deeper, pulling Charlotte with me, aiming for the space beneath the dock where the moonlight couldn't penetrate. Above us, I heard the muffled splash as Ryan dove in after us. We surfaced beneath the dock, gasping as quietly as possible, clinging to the wooden supports. The water was brutally cold, instantly sapping strength from my limbs. Charlotte's teeth chattered beside me, her breathing ragged. Ryan's splashing was frantic, uncoordinated. Where are you? He shouted, his voice echoing across the lake. You can't hide forever. We pressed ourselves against the slimy pilings, trying to become invisible in the shadows. Ryan continued to thrash in the water, moving away from the dock. Then back, searching. Come out now, he called, a desperate edge to his voice. And I'll make it quick. Keep hiding, and I'll take my time when I find you. Suddenly, a new sound cut through the night. Sirens, distant but approaching. The police were coming. We just had to hold on a little longer. Ryan heard them too. His splashing grew more urgent as he made his way back to the dock. We held perfectly still as his hand grasped the edge just feet from where we hid. He pulled himself up, water streaming from his clothes, and stood on the wooden planks above us. His feet moved quickly down, the dock toward shore. He was running, trying to escape before the police arrived. "We need to stop him," Charlotte whispered, already moving to pull herself up onto the dock. "Wait," I hissed, grabbing her arm. "He still has the knife. Let the police handle it." "But," Charlotte shook me off. "He'll get away. He'll come back for us." Before I could stop her, she hauled herself onto the dock, her soaked clothes weighing her down, but determination driving her forward. I followed immediately, unwilling to let her face Ryan alone again. We ran down the dock, Charlotte a few steps ahead of me. Ryan had nearly reached the shore, his figure visible against the tree line. The sirens were louder now, red and blue lights beginning to flash through the trees from the direction of the house. "Ryan!" Charlotte shouted. "It's over!" He turned, the knife still in his hand, his face contorted with rage and defeat. "This is your fault," he snarled. "All of it. You and your sister with your precious trust funds, thinking you're better than everyone else." "We never thought that," Charlotte replied, slowing her approach, hands raised placatingly. "We just wanted what was rightfully ours." "And what about what's rightfully mine?" Ryan demanded. "After everything I did for you? What did you do except—" "Lie?" Charlotte asked, her voice surprisingly gentle. "You never loved me. You never even knew me." For a moment, something like regret flickered across Ryan's face. Then the mask slammed back into place. "None of that matters now." Police voices called from the direction of the house, flashlight beams cutting through the trees. "Police! Put down any weapons and put your hands up." Ryan glanced toward the voices, then back at us, calculation evident in his eyes. The knife in his hand twitched. "Don't," I pleaded, moving to stand beside Charlotte. "Please, Ryan. Enough people have been hurt tonight." For a long moment, no one moved. Ryan stood poised between flight and attack, the knife glinting dully in his hand. Charlotte and I waited, breath held for his decision. Then, with a sound of pure frustration, Ryan hurled the knife into the lake. It disappeared with a small splash, lost to the dark waters. "This isn't over," he said, but the fight had gone out of him. Not by a long shot. Police officers appeared at the tree line, weapons drawn. "On the ground! Now!" Ryan sank to his knees, hands raised in surrender. As officers rushed forward to restrain him, Charlotte's legs finally gave out. She collapsed onto the damp earth, shivering violently from cold and delayed shock. I knelt beside her, wrapping my arms around her trembling shoulders as emergency blankets were draped over us both. Over her head, I watched Ryan being led away, in handcuffs, his final glare burning with promises of retribution. "It's over," I murmured to Charlotte, though Ryan's parting words echoed uneasily in my mind. "It's really over." But as an officer helped us to our feet and guided us toward the waiting ambulance, I couldn't shake the feeling that Ryan Blackwell wasn't a man who accepted defeat easily, and that this nightmare, rather than ending, had merely entered a new phase. A phase where the danger might be less immediate, but no less real. The next week passed in a blur of police statements, medical examinations, and legal consultations. Ryan was held without bail, charged with multiple felonies: attempted murder, assault with a deadly weapon, breaking and entering, and fraud. His previous criminal record and the violence of his actions made him a flight risk, the judge had determined. Charlotte and I gave our statements separately, recounting the nightmare at the lake house in clinical detail for detectives who nodded, sympathetically while typing every word into their reports. They assured us that Ryan would be locked away for a very long time, that we were safe now. I wanted to believe them, But every night I woke gasping from dreams where Ryan escaped, where he found us again, where we weren't quick enough or strong enough to fight back. Charlotte moved in with me temporarily, neither of us wanting to be alone. She took the guest bedroom, but often ended up in my room after nightmares jolted her awake. We'd sit together in the darkness, neither speaking, just drawing comfort from each other's presence, like we had as children during thunderstorms. Harry was a constant support, handling the legal and financial complexities while we focused on recovery. He visited daily, bringing food, updates, and occasionally just sitting quietly while we processed what had happened. "The marriage will be annulled," he explained one afternoon, spreading documents across my dining table. "Given the circumstances, Ryan's false identity, his criminal history, his clear intent to defraud, it's a straightforward case." Charlotte nodded numbly, her fingers tracing patterns on the wooden tabletop. "And the money? The funds he took?" Harry sighed, removing his glasses to polish them methodically. "That's more complicated. The $500,000 he took from Olivia's trust has been largely dispersed through various accounts. We're tracing it, but recovery may be partial at best." "I'll pay it back," Charlotte said immediately, looking at me with determination. "From my trust. Every penny." "You don't have to do that," I started, but she cut me off. "I do. I'm responsible for what happened. I let him manipulate me, use me to steal from you." Her voice cracked slightly. "It's the least I can do." Harry cleared his throat. "Actually, there's something else we need to discuss." He pulled another document from his briefcase. "Your grandfather's marriage clause." Charlotte stiffened. "What about it?" "With the annulment, it's as if the marriage never legally existed," Harry explained. "However, the funds were still improperly accessed. The question becomes, what happens to the trusteeship now?" I understood immediately what he was asking. With Ryan out of the picture and the marriage being annulled, did I maintain control of both trusts, or did Charlotte regain independence over her funds? "I want Charlotte to have control of her trust again," I said without hesitation. "As soon as possible." Charlotte looked at me, surprise and gratitude mingling in her expression. "Are you sure? After what I did?" "You were a victim, Char, not an accomplice." I reached across the table to take her hand. "I trust you. I always have." Harry nodded, a hint of a smile lifting the corners of his mouth. "I hoped you'd say that. I've already drafted the paperwork to transfer control back to Charlotte." He slid another document forward. "All it needs is your signature, Olivia." Signed it immediately, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. This particular responsibility, at least, I could relinquish. The physical injuries from our ordeal healed quickly, scratches and bruises fading, the sprained wrist Charlotte had suffered during the struggle on the dock regaining strength. The psychological wounds ran deeper. Charlotte threw herself into therapy with characteristic intensity, determined to understand how she had fallen victim to Ryan's manipulation, how she could prevent it from happening again. I attended some sessions with her, both of us working to rebuild the trust that had been damaged not just by Ryan, but by our own actions and reactions. "I keep asking myself how I didn't see it," Charlotte confessed during one particularly difficult evening, a month after the lake house. We were sitting on my balcony, watching the city lights bloom as dusk settled. All the red flags, the rushing, the isolation, the financial control. It's like I was blind. "That's how people like Ryan operate," I replied, swirling the wine in my glass. "They don't show their true colors until they think they have you locked down." "But I should have known better," she insisted. "I'm not naive. I'm not stupid. Intelligence has nothing to do with it. He was a professional predator, Char. He'd perfected his technique through multiple victims." She sighed, leaning back in her chair. "Our trust funds made us targets. Grandfather tried to protect us with that marriage clause, but in the end, it just created another vulnerability for Ryan to exploit. I considered this. Maybe. Or maybe it saved us. If that clause hadn't existed, if I hadn't gained control when I did, he might have gotten away with it all, Charlotte finished. Drained both our accounts completely before we realized what was happening. The thought was sobering. We sat in silence for a while, contemplating how differently things might have ended. I'm thinking of using some of my trust to start a foundation, Charlotte said suddenly. For women who've been financially exploited by partners, legal aid, counseling, emergency resources. I smiled, recognizing the familiar determination in her voice. The Charlotte who had existed before Ryan, resurfacing day by day. That sounds perfect. I need to make something good come from this, she continued. Otherwise he wins, doesn't he? If I just retreat, become bitter, suspicious. He doesn't win, I assured her. He's going to prison for a very long time. But I understand what you mean, about making meaning from it. My phone chimed with a text. Harry, which was unusual for this time of evening. I opened it, expecting some minor update about the ongoing financial forensics. Instead, what I read made my blood run cold. Ryan's requesting a meeting with Charlotte. Says he has information about where the missing money is. His lawyer claims he wants to make amends before sentencing. I stared at the screen, then wordlessly passed the phone to Charlotte. She read it, her face paling in the fading light. No, she said flatly, handing the phone back. Absolutely not. I agree, I replied, though a small, practical part of my mind couldn't help wondering about the missing funds. It's a manipulation tactic. He wants to see me, Charlotte said, her voice tight. To gauge if he still has any power over me. That's all this is. I nodded, texting Harry back with our refusal. But after I set the phone down, Charlotte spoke again, her tone changed. Actually, I think I should do it. I stared at her. What? Why? She straightened, something steely entering her expression. Because I need to face him on my terms, not running for my life, not fighting for survival. Just me, looking him in the eye, showing him he has no hold on me anymore. Charlotte, it's too dangerous, emotionally at least. I know the risks, she said calmly. But I also know myself. If I don't do this, I'll always wonder if I was too afraid, if he still had that power over me. I studied her face, searching for signs of the vulnerability Ryan had exploited. Instead, I saw only resolve, clarity, my sister, the strongest version of herself. If you're sure, I said slowly, then I'm coming with you. The meeting was arranged for the following week at the detention center where Ryan awaited trial. Security would be tight, the meeting supervised. Still, as we drove there, both Charlotte and I were unusually quiet, each lost in our own thoughts about what Ryan might say, what he might try to do even in these controlled circumstances. Neither of us could have anticipated what actually happened, a twist that would once again change everything we thought we knew about Ryan, about the money, and about what he was truly capable of. The detention center was a series of contradictions, sterile yet grimy, organized yet chaotic, secure yet somehow precarious. We surrendered our phones, passed through metal detectors, submitted to pat-downs, all while guards watched with practiced indifference. Harry had arranged for our meeting to take place in one of the attorney conference rooms rather than the usual visitation area. More private, he'd explained, and no glass partition, but there will be a guard present at all times. Charlotte's face remained impassive throughout the security process, but I caught her hands trembling slightly as we were led down a long corridor. I squeezed her fingers gently, receiving a grateful glance in return. You don't have to do this, I reminded her in a whisper. I do, she replied simply. The conference room was small, containing only a rectangular table bolted to the floor and 4 chairs, 2 on each side. A uniformed guard took up position by the door, expression neutral but alert. We sat on one side of the table, leaving the chairs opposite for Ryan and his attorney. Charlotte smoothed non-existent wrinkles from her blouse, a nervous gesture I recognized from childhood. The door opened and Ryan entered, followed by a trim woman in a gray suit who I assumed was his lawyer. He wore an orange jumpsuit, his hands cuffed in front of him, but otherwise looked disconcertingly normal. The swelling from where I'd hit him with the skillet had subsided, leaving only a faint, yellowish bruise. His hair was neatly combed, his expression composed. Only his eyes betrayed him, cold, calculating, assessing us as he took the seat across from Charlotte. "Thank you for coming," he said, his voice soft and controlled. "Both of you." Charlotte stared at him, saying nothing. Her posture was rigid, her jaw set. Ryan's attorney intervened smoothly. "My client appreciates this opportunity to speak with you. He has information he feels might be valuable regarding the missing funds." "Then he can tell the police," I replied. "Why did he need to see us in person?" Ryan leaned forward slightly. "Because what I have to say isn't just about the money, it's about Charlotte, about us." Charlotte flinched almost imperceptibly. "There is no us, Ryan. There was once," he countered. "Before your sister interfered. Before she poisoned you." "Against me." I bristled, but Charlotte placed a restraining hand on my arm. "I'm not here to rehash the past," she said firmly. "You claim to have information about the money you stole. Start there, or we leave." Ryan's mouth tightened briefly, before he nodded. "Fair enough." He glanced at his attorney, who slid a folded piece of paper across the table. Charlotte made no move to take it, so I did, unfolding it carefully. It contained a list of bank account numbers, routing information, and access codes. "What is this?" I asked. "The locations of all the funds I moved from your trusts," Ryan replied. "Approximately $480,000 in total, spread across those accounts. The passwords will give you access to transfer it back." Charlotte frowned. "Why would you give us this? What's your angle?" "No angle," Ryan said, spreading his hands as far as the handcuffs would allow. "Consider it a gesture of good faith. I know I can't undo what happened, but I can at least return what was taken." His performance was flawless, contrite, reasonable, sincere. If I hadn't seen his true nature at the lake house, I might almost have believed him. Charlotte clearly wasn't buying it either. "Why now?" she pressed. "You had plenty of opportunities to return the money before trying to kill us." Ryan winced at her bluntness. "I wasn't thinking clearly then. I was desperate, cornered. I'm not making excuses, but..." He sighed, a masterful display of regret. "Prison has a way of clarifying your perspective. I've had time to reflect on my actions, on the person I became." His attorney nodded encouragingly. "My client is cooperating fully with authorities. This gesture regarding the funds is entirely his idea, not part of any plea deal." Something felt off about the whole scenario. Ryan wasn't the type to have sudden attacks of conscience, and he certainly wasn't the type to surrender a financial advantage without getting something in return. "What do you want?" I asked directly. "In exchange for this information." Ryan looked hurt. "Nothing. I just want to do the right thing. For once." "Bullshit," Charlotte said flatly. "You've never done anything without an angle, Ryan. What is it this time?" His facade cracked slightly, irritation flashing across his features before he controlled it. "Fine. I was hoping this gesture might influence your victim impact statements at my sentencing. The judge will consider them heavily." And there it was, the real motivation. He wanted us to tell the judge he was remorseful, that he'd made amends. To advocate for leniency. "No deal," Charlotte said immediately. "The money was never yours to take in the first place. Returning stolen property doesn't deserve a reward." Ryan leaned back, a cold smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "I thought you might say that. But consider this. Those accounts contain not just your money, but evidence. Evidence of other crimes, other victims. I stared at him. What are you talking about? I wasn't always as selective in my financial activities as I was with Charlotte, he explained, something ugly lurking beneath his smooth tone. There are records in those accounts that would be very interesting to the authorities. Records that might help other women recover their losses. Then give the information to the police, Charlotte countered. Ryan shook his head. That's not how this works. The accounts are secured, encrypted. Without those passwords, it would take years to access them, if ever. And I'm only giving them to you. So we're supposed to do your dirty work? I asked incredulously. Clean up your mess and then tell the judge what a changed man you are? Think of it as a mutually beneficial arrangement, Ryan replied. You get your money back, other victims get justice, and yes, I hopefully get some consideration at sentencing. Everyone wins. Charlotte stood abruptly. We're done here. Ryan's attorney looked alarmed. Ms. Caldwell, please reconsider. This information can be provided to the proper authorities directly, Charlotte finished for her. Without conditions, without manipulation. Ryan's calculated mask slipped completely, revealing the rage beneath. You think you're so clever, both of you. But you have no idea what you're dealing with. No idea at all. Actually, we do, I replied, standing beside Charlotte. We're dealing with a con man, a thief, and a would-be murderer. Nothing more. His eyes hardened. You should take the deal, Charlotte, for your own good, for Olivia's good. The subtle threat wasn't lost on either of us. Charlotte stared at him for a long moment, then turned to the guard. We're finished. Please have someone escort us out. As we were leaving, Ryan called after us, his voice deceptively casual. By the way, how's the security at your apartment? Building, Olivia? Still using that keypad entry system that's been recalled twice for vulnerabilities? And Charlotte, have you changed all your passwords yet? Social media? Email? Banking? We both froze in the doorway. The guard stepped forward, warning Ryan to be quiet, but the damage was done. He'd made his point. He knew details about our lives, our security, and he was letting us know that even from inside, he could reach us if he wanted to. In the corridor, Charlotte gripped my arm, her face pale. He's still trying to control us, still trying to manipulate us with fear. I know, I replied, my heart racing despite my outward calm. But we can't let him. That's exactly what he wants. We retrieved our belongings from security and stepped outside into the bright afternoon sunlight. The normality of the world, people walking by, traffic flowing, clouds drifting overhead, seemed surreal after the tension of the detention center. What do we do about the account information? Charlotte asked as we walked to my car. Do we give it to the police? Try to access it ourselves? I studied the paper in my hand, thinking hard. We tell Harry first, get his advice. This feels like a trap, but I'm not sure what Ryan's endgame is. Charlotte nodded, then suddenly stopped walking, her gaze fixed on something across the parking lot. Liv, she said quietly. That woman by the black SUV. She's watching us. I followed her gaze. A woman with dark hair, sunglasses, expensive clothes, leaning against a luxury vehicle. As soon as she realized we'd noticed her, she straightened and walked deliberately in our direction. Ms. Caldwell, she called. Charlotte Caldwell? We both tensed, instinctively moving closer together. Who's asking? I replied. The woman stopped a few feet away, removing her sunglasses. She was in her 40s, attractive in a severe way with sharp features and calculating eyes. My name is Diana Blackwell. I believe you've met my husband, Ryan. The revelation hit like a physical blow. Diana Blackwell, Ryan's wife. But not his first, or even his most recent before Charlotte. According to Harry's research, Diana had been wife number 2, the one who had filed a restraining order after their divorce. Ex-husband, Charlotte corrected, finding her voice. And soon to be mine as well. Diana's mouth curved in a humorless smile. Ex on paper, perhaps, but men like Ryan never really let go. Not completely, as you're learning. I stepped forward protectively. What do you want? To talk, Diana replied simply. About Ryan, about what he's really planning, and about what the two of you need to know if you want to survive what's coming next. Charlotte and I exchanged glances, uncertainty mingling with curiosity and apprehension. This woman had lived through what we were experiencing. She might have insights, warnings, vital information, or she could be just another piece in Ryan's elaborate game of manipulation and control. Why should we trust you? Charlotte asked. Diana's expression hardened. You shouldn't. You shouldn't trust anyone connected to Ryan, but you should listen to me, because I'm the only one who knows what he's really capable of. She glanced toward the detention center, then back at us. And whatever he told you in there today, whatever deal he offered, whatever threat he made, it's worse than you think. Much worse. The conviction in her voice sent a chill through me, despite the warm afternoon sun. Diana Blackwell might be an ally, an enemy, or something in between. But one thing was certain. The nightmare with Ryan was far from over. It was only evolving. We agreed to meet Diana at a busy cafe a few blocks from the detention center. Public enough to be safe, private enough for the conversation we needed to have. Charlotte called Harry on the way, briefing him on both the meeting with Ryan and Diana's unexpected appearance. I'm on my way, he said immediately. Don't tell her anything substantial until I get there. The cafe was crowded, a Friday afternoon mix of people finishing work early and students starting their weekend. We chose a table in the corner, positioned so we could see both the entrance and the emergency exit. Small defensive strategies we'd adopted since the lake house. Diana arrived shortly after us, ordering an espresso before joining us at the table. Up close, I could see the signs of strain beneath her polished exterior. Fine lines around her eyes, a tightness to her jaw, the slight tremor in her hands as she arranged her napkin. I know you have no reason to trust me, she began without preamble. But believe me when I say I have even less reason to help Ryan. Whatever he's planning, it's not in my best interest any more than it's in yours. Why are you here then? Charlotte asked. Why get involved? Diana took a measured sip of her espresso. Self-preservation, primarily. Ryan has a pattern. When one scheme fails, he escalates, becomes more dangerous, and he never operates alone. That caught my attention. What? Do you mean never alone? Ryan cultivates relationships with people who can be useful to him, Diana explained. Corrupt officials, ex-cons, people with specialized skills or access. He calls them his network. Charlotte frowned. He mentioned connections, people who could help us disappear, people who could hurt Olivia if he wanted. Diana nodded grimly. Not empty threats. During our marriage, he used these connections to monitor me, to ensure I couldn't leave him. And when I finally did, she trailed off, absently touching a thin scar near her hairline. Let's just say the restraining order was necessary but not sufficient. A chill ran through me. You think he's activating this network now? From inside? I know he is, Diana replied. Last week, someone broke into my home. Nothing was taken. But things were moved, rearranged. A message. Then yesterday I received this. She removed a folded paper from her purse, sliding it across the table. It was a photograph of Diana entering her workplace, time-stamped 2 days ago. Written across it in bold marker. Still watching. Jesus, Charlotte whispered. After all? This time? Ryan doesn't forgive perceived betrayals, Diana said flatly, and he certainly doesn't forget them. How did you find us? I asked, suspicion still lingering despite her story. Ryan's attorney, Rebecca Stern. Diana's mouth twisted. She's part of his network, has been for years. Whenever he gets in legal trouble, she appears. Not just as his lawyer, but as his conduit to the outside. That explained how Ryan had known details about our current living situations despite being incarcerated. His attorney was feeding him information. I have a source at her firm, Diana continued. When I learned Ryan was meeting with his latest wife today, I knew I had to intervene. Whatever he told you, whatever he offered, it's a trap. He gave us account information, Charlotte said, ignoring my warning glance. Said it contained the money he took, plus evidence of other crimes. Diana's expression darkened. And let me guess, he wants something in return? Leniency at sentencing? Good word with the judge? I nodded reluctantly. Classic Ryan, she said bitterly. Offering just enough truth to make the lie palatable. The accounts probably exist, might even contain some of your money. But they'll also contain something else. Something that benefits him far more than it benefits you. The door to the cafe opened, and Harry entered, his gaze sweeping the room until he spotted us. He approached quickly, tension evident in his normally composed demeanor. Diana Blackwell, he said, taking the fourth chair at our table. We've spoken on the phone. Diana inclined her head slightly. Mr. Winters, during your investigation of Ryan's background, as I recall. You didn't mention then that he still had people watching you, Harry noted, a hint of accusation in his tone. You didn't ask, she replied coolly. And at the time, the surveillance had become sporadic. Now it's consistent again. Aggressive. Because of us, Charlotte said, guilt creeping into her voice. Because of Ryan, Diana corrected firmly. His choices, his actions, not yours. Harry placed his briefcase on the table, removing a legal pad. Tell us everything you know about Ryan's network. Names, positions, any details that could help us identify who might be working with him now. Diana hesitated. I was never privy to all the details. Ryan compartmentalizes, keeps everyone on a need-to-know basis. But I can tell you about the ones I encountered directly. What followed was a disturbing catalog of Ryan's connections. Paralegal at the county courthouse who could access sealed records. A former police officer discharged for misconduct who now worked private security. An IT specialist who could hack email accounts and cell phones. A banker who facilitated money. Movements without asking questions. His primary lieutenant is a man named Victor Caruso, Diana explained. Ex-military, dishonorably discharged. He handles the more physical aspects of Ryan's operations. Physical? I repeated, dread pooling in my stomach. Diana met my gaze. Directly. Intimidation, surveillance, and worse when necessary. He's the one who gave me this. She touched the scar on her hairline again. A warning to keep quiet about Ryan's activities after our divorce. Harry wrote furiously, documenting every detail. We need to take this to the police immediately. These are criminal conspirators. With what evidence? Diana challenged. My word? The word of two women Ryan will paint as vindictive exes? You need proof, Mr. Winters. Concrete proof. The account information, Charlotte said suddenly. If Ryan's telling the truth, it contains evidence of other crimes. Could that implicate his network too? Diana considered this. Possibly. Ryan is careful, but not infallible, especially when he thinks he's in control of the situation. So we access the accounts, I suggested. Absolutely not, Harry objected immediately. That could be exactly what Ryan wants, for you to access the accounts and unknowingly trigger something illegal, something that could compromise you. I agree with Mr. Winters, Diana said. Ryan never gives something without expecting a greater return. Those accounts are a trap. Then what do we do? Charlotte asked, frustration evident in her voice. We can't just sit around waiting for Ryan or his network to make a move against us. Diana leaned forward, lowering her voice. There's another option. I haven't shared this with anyone, but before our marriage ended, I made copies of certain documents. Insurance, I called it. Information about Ryan's operations, his financial schemes, even some of his network connections. Why didn't you give this to the police? Harry asked, suspicion clear in his tone. For the same reason I have a security system that would make Fort Knox envious, Diana replied sharply. Self-preservation. As long as Ryan believed I had that. Information secured with instructions for its release if anything happened to me. I was somewhat protected. Where is this information now? I asked. In a safe deposit box at First Meridian Bank downtown, Diana replied. Access requires both a key and a biometric scan of my fingerprint. Harry frowned. And you're willing to retrieve this information? For us? Why now, after keeping it hidden all this time? Diana's composure slipped slightly, revealing a flicker of genuine fear. Because Ryan's escalating again. The break-in, the surveillance photo, their warnings. He's planning something bigger, and this time, I don't think my insurance will be enough to protect me. She looked between Charlotte and me. Or you. Charlotte and I exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between us. Despite everything, I still wasn't sure we could trust Diana. Her story made sense, aligned with what we knew of Ryan, but she could just as easily be part of his network, manipulating us for some purpose we couldn't yet see. I need to make a call, Harry said, standing abruptly. Excuse me for a moment. While he stepped outside, an uncomfortable silence fell over our table. Diana sipped her espresso, outwardly calm, but alert, her gaze continuously scanning the cafe. Charlotte fiddled with her napkin, lost in thought. I watched them both, trying to piece together the puzzle of Ryan's intentions. How did you get away from him? Charlotte finally asked Diana. Really get away? Diana set down her cup, considering the question. I haven't, not completely. That's the point I'm trying to make. You never fully escape men like Ryan. You just learn to live with the shadow they cast. She sighed. But I've built a life despite that shadow. A good one. Changed jobs, moved cities, made new friends who know nothing about my past. It's possible. But not easy, Charlotte murmured. No, Diana agreed. Not easy, Harry returned, his expression grim. I've just spoken with the detective handling Ryan's case. There was an incident at the detention center after your meeting. A guard was assaulted, and during the commotion, Ryan managed to access a phone. He made a 2-minute call to an unregistered number. My blood ran cold. When was this? Approximately 20 minutes after you left, Harry replied. Just before. Diana approached you in the parking lot. All eyes turned to Diana, who appeared genuinely startled. I had nothing to do with that. I've been watching the detention center since morning, waiting for Charlotte to appear. Convenient timing, Harry noted coolly. Or strategic on Ryan's part, Diana countered. He knows my patterns as well as I know his. If he spotted me from a window, he might have orchestrated the incident, knowing I would likely approach his current wife. It was impossible to know who was telling the truth. Ryan's manipulation extended so far, created such elaborate webs of deceit, that distinguishing allies from enemies had become nearly impossible. What did the detective say about the accounts Ryan gave us? I asked Harry, trying to focus on concrete facts rather than swirling suspicions. They're running the numbers now, checking for any obvious red flags, Harry replied. But they're being cautious, as am I. Accessing those accounts directly could trigger anything from a simple alert to Ryan to something much more problematic. And my documents? Diana pressed. Are you interested, or shall I continue handling Ryan on my own? Harry studied her for a long moment. If you're willing to turn over this evidence, we'll accompany you to retrieve it. But understand, It goes directly to the authorities. No private negotiations, no withholding information. Diana nodded slowly. Fair enough. First thing Monday morning when the bank opens. I'll meet you there. As she gathered her belongings to leave, Charlotte reached out, catching her wrist. Why are you really helping us? Diana looked at her, something like compassion flickering in her eyes. Because 5 years ago, no one helped me. And because eventually, someone needs to stop Ryan Blackwell. Permanently. She left us sitting there, her words hanging in the air like a prophecy, or perhaps a warning. By Monday, we would either have powerful evidence against Ryan and his network, or we would discover that Diana Blackwell was just another player in his elaborate game of manipulation and control. And if the latter proved true, we might already have walked into a trap from which there was no easy escape. The weekend stretched before us like an eternity. After our meeting with Diana, Harry insisted we not return to either of our apartments, booking us instead into a hotel under his law firm's corporate account. Just until we can properly assess the threat level, he explained, handing us key cards to adjoining rooms on the 14th floor of an upscale downtown hotel. No names on the reservation, no credit card trails. Pay cash for anything you need. It felt excessive, almost cinematic, like we'd stepped into a spy thriller rather than our own lives. But the memory of Ryan's pointed comments about our security systems, of Diana's scar and surveillance photo, kept us from protesting too strongly. Saturday morning brought a call from the detective handling Ryan's case. The accounts he'd provided did exist, but preliminary investigation showed they were flagged for suspicious activity in multiple jurisdictions. We're working with financial crimes units to access them properly, the detective explained when I put her on speaker for Charlotte and Harry to hear. But it will take time, warrants, international cooperation. And in the meantime? Charlotte asked, tension evident in her voice. In the meantime, we've added extra security at the detention center. Ryan's lost all phone privileges, and his attorney visits are now monitored. It should have been reassuring. It wasn't. What about his network? I pressed. The people working with him on the outside? The detective's sigh was audible through the speaker. We're pursuing those leads as well, Ms. Caldwell, but without concrete evidence of criminal conspiracy. Our options are limited. That's why Monday's meeting with Ms. Blackwell is potentially so valuable. After the call ended, Harry left to prepare for Monday's meeting at the bank, promising to return later with dinner and updates. Charlotte and I were left alone in my hotel room, both of us restless, on edge. I need air, Charlotte announced suddenly, after an hour of mindlessly flipping through TV channels. Let's go for a walk, find a coffee shop, something. I can't just sit here waiting for Monday. I hesitated, caution warring with cabin fever. Harry said to stay put. Harry's being paranoid, she countered, already grabbing her jacket. We're in downtown, surrounded by people. There's safety in numbers, right? Besides, we can't hide forever. She had a point, and the walls of the hotel room were beginning to close in on me as well. Fine, I conceded. But we stay in public places, crowded areas, and we're back within an hour. We took the elevator down to the lobby, both of us scanning the space instinctively for anyone suspicious, anyone watching too closely. The hotel opened onto a busy commercial street, lined with shops and cafes, perfect for blending into weekend crowds. We walked for several blocks, shoulders relaxing incrementally with each step away from the hotel. The simple act of movement, of doing something rather than passively waiting, was cathartic. We found a bustling cafe with outdoor seating and ordered drinks, choosing a table that gave us clear views in all directions. Do you trust her? Charlotte asked abruptly, stirring her latte. Diana. I considered the question carefully. I'm not sure. Her story checks out, and her fear seemed genuine. But she could still be working with Ryan, Charlotte finished. A more elaborate con. It seems unlikely, I admitted. but so did you stealing from my trust fund a few months ago. Charlotte winced. Fair point. What about you? I asked. Do you trust her? She stared into her coffee, expression thoughtful. I think I do. There was something in her eyes when she talked about Ryan. Real fear, real hatred. That's not something you can fake easily. We fell silent, watching people pass by, each lost in our own thoughts about Monday's meeting and what Diana's evidence might reveal. It was during this lull in conversation that Charlotte suddenly stiffened, her gaze fixed on something across the street. Liv, she said quietly. Don't make it obvious, but look at the man by the newspaper stand. Gray jacket, baseball cap. I casually shifted my position, glancing in the direction she indicated. The man stood partially obscured by the display, ostensibly browsing magazines. But his attention wasn't on the publications. It was on us. Could be coincidence, I murmured, though my racing pulse suggested otherwise. Let's find out, Charlotte replied, gathering her things. If we move, we'll see if he follows. We paid quickly and began walking, choosing a route that took us through a department store with multiple exits. Sure enough, Gray Jacket appeared shortly after we entered, maintaining a careful distance but definitely following our path. We need to get back to the hotel, I whispered urgently. Call Harry. Charlotte nodded, her face pale but determined. We navigated through ladies' wear, taking a circuitous route toward the street-side exit. Gray Jacket kept pace, occasionally, pretending to examine merchandise but always keeping us in sight. We emerged onto a different street than we'd entered from, momentarily confusing our pursuer. Taking advantage of his hesitation, we slipped into the crowd waiting to cross at a busy intersection. When the light changes, we run, I said under my breath. 3 blocks east is that upscale shopping mall. Security cameras, lots of people. The light turned green, and we moved with the crowd, then broke into a run the moment we reached the other side. I heard a shout behind us, but we didn't look back, weaving through startled pedestrians, hearts pounding in unison. We reached the mall entrance, bursting through the doors into climate-controlled safety. Security guards stood near the entrance, their presence deterring Gray Jacket from following immediately. Second level, Charlotte gasped, pulling me toward the escalator. We can watch the entrance from there, see if he comes in. From our vantage point on the upper level, we had a clear view of the mall entrance. Minutes ticked by with no sign of our pursuer. Maybe we lost him, Charlotte suggested hopefully. Maybe, I replied, unconvinced. Or maybe he's waiting outside for us to leave. We debated our options. Stay in the mall until closing, call Harry for an escort, try to find a rear exit. In the end, we decided to call for a rideshare from inside the mall, have it meet us at a specific entrance, and make a dash for it. The plan worked smoothly, almost too smoothly. We made it back to the hotel without incident, no sign of Gray Jacket or any other tale. But as the elevator carried us back to our floor, the ease of our escape left me uneasy rather than relieved. That felt too easy, I confessed to Charlotte as we re-entered my room. If he was part of Ryan's network, why give up so quickly? Charlotte sank onto the edge of the bed, adrenaline crash evident in her posture. Maybe he was just supposed to follow, not confront. Maybe he wasn't very good at his job. She looked up suddenly, eyes widening. Or maybe the point wasn't to catch us, but to flush us out of the hotel, to confirm where we're staying. The implication sent a chill through me. I moved to the window, peering down at the street 14 floors below. From this height, people were just tiny figures moving along the sidewalk. Gray Jacket could be any of them, or none of them. We should call Harry, I decided, reaching for the hotel phone. But before I could dial, my cell phone rang. An unknown number. With trembling fingers, I answered, putting it on speaker. Ms. Caldwell, a male voice I didn't recognize, spoke. Or should I say Ms. Caldwell and Ms. Caldwell, since I know you're both listening? Charlotte stood, moving to my side. Who is this? A mutual friend of Diana Blackwell, the voice replied smoothly. And Ryan Bennett, or Blackwell, as he was known when I first met him. Victor Caruso, I guessed, recalling Diana's description of Ryan's primary lieutenant. A low chuckle. Very good. I see Diana's been talking. That's unfortunate for her. Cold dread pooled in my stomach. What do you want? Just to deliver a message, Caruso replied. Your meeting on Monday? It's not going to happen. Diana has had a change of heart, or perhaps I should say, a change of priorities. What have you done to her? Charlotte demanded. Nothing permanent. Yet. His tone hardened. But her continued well-being depends entirely on your cooperation. You will access the accounts Ryan provided, transfer the funds as directed, and then withdraw your statements against him. Or what? I challenged, though I already knew the answer. Or Diana dies. Caruso stated simply. And she'll just be the first. Ryan's very thorough when he feels betrayed. A pause. Check your email in 5 minutes for instructions. You have until midnight tomorrow to comply. The line went dead, leaving us staring at each other in horror. Our hotel sanctuary suddenly felt exposed, vulnerable. Ryan's network had found us, had seemingly abducted Diana, and now had us firmly in their crosshairs. And with less than 36 hours to respond to their demands, we faced an impossible choice. Comply and potentially implicate ourselves in Ryan's crimes or refuse and risk Diana's life, and possibly our own. The trap we'd feared had finally sprung, and we were caught firmly within its jaws. The email arrived exactly 5 minutes later, as promised. No text in the body, just an attachment. A photograph of Diana Blackwell, bound to a chair, a copy of today's newspaper visible beside her proving the image was current. She appeared, physically unharmed but terrified, her usual composure shattered. Below the photo were detailed instructions, account numbers, transfer protocols, routing information. They wanted us to move the money through a complex series of transactions, ultimately landing in untraceable cryptocurrency wallets. And they wanted us to do it from Diana's own laptop, which they would provide at a designated meeting point. We have to call the police, I said immediately, reaching for my phone. Charlotte caught my wrist, stopping me. And tell them what? That Ryan's associate kidnapped Diana? That they're blackmailing us? We have no proof except a photograph that could have been staged and a call from an untraceable number. We can't just do nothing, I protested. We can't let them hurt her. I'm not suggesting that, Charlotte replied, her voice steadier than I expected. I'm suggesting we call Harry first. He knows people, has resources. He might have ideas that don't involve walking straight into their trap. She was right. We called Harry, who arrived at our hotel room 20 minutes later, his usual meticulous appearance disheveled by haste and concern. Show me everything, he demanded, reviewing the email and listening to our account of the phone call and our follower. His expression grew grimmer with each detail. This is exactly what I was afraid of, he said finally. Ryan's escalating, using his network to force your compliance. So what do we do? Charlotte asked. We can't let them hurt Diana. Harry paced the small hotel room, thinking aloud. If we go to the police, Caruso will know. He likely has contacts within the department. If we attempt to comply with their demands, we risk implicating ourselves in money laundering at minimum, potentially worse depending on what's in those accounts. And if we do nothing? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Harry's expression was grim. Then Diana likely suffers the consequences, and they'll move on to other leverage points. You too? Me? Anyone connected to this case? The weight of the situation pressed down on us, options dwindling by the minute. Then Charlotte straightened, a determined look crossing her face. "We need to turn the trap against them," she said. "Use their own plan to catch them." "How?" I asked. "We agree to their terms," she explained, "but on our conditions. We insist on proof that Diana is alive and unharmed. We demand to see her in person during the exchange. And meanwhile, we have people in place to track the money and apprehend whoever shows up." Harry nodded slowly. "It could work. I have contacts, private security, former law enforcement, people Ryan wouldn't know to watch for. But it's risky. Very risky. Less risky than doing nothing," Charlotte argued, "or walking in blind." I studied my sister, seeing a strength and clarity I hadn't witnessed in months, perhaps longer. Adversity was burning away the fog of manipulation. Ryan had wrapped around her, revealing the core of who she had always been: determined, resourceful, brave. "I agree with Charlotte," I said, "but with one addition. I want to be wired, record everything. If this goes wrong, at least there will be evidence of what really happened." Harry pulled out his phone. "I'll make the calls, but we need to move. Quickly. Respond to the email, agree to their demands, but insist on seeing Diana in person during the exchange." The next 24 hours passed in a blur of preparations. Harry's contacts, a network of his own, I realized, built over decades in law practice, provided surveillance equipment, tracking software, and a team of former Special Forces operatives who now worked private security. Our response to Caruso's email had been met with initial resistance, then grudging agreement. The exchange would happen at 11 p.m. Sunday night, in an abandoned warehouse at the edge of the industrial district. We would arrive with Diana's laptop, which they would provide at the site, access the accounts, make the transfers under their supervision, and only then would Diana be released. "It's a terrible location," mused Harris, the head of our security team, studying architectural plans of the warehouse. "Multiple entry points, poor visibility, too many places for lookouts or snipers. They've chosen well." "Can you secure it?" Harry asked. Harris nodded, though his expression remained concerned. "We can have people in position, thermal imaging, to identify all parties present, but the risks remain substantial." "We need contingencies," I insisted. "What if they don't bring Diana? What if they try to take us instead?" "That's why you won't be going in alone," Harris explained. "We'll have people posing as your driver and security, others hidden inside the perimeter. The moment we have visual confirmation of Diana and evidence of coercion, we move." The plan was as solid as it could be given the circumstances. Still, as we prepared to leave the hotel Sunday evening, dread settled in my stomach like lead. So many variables, so many ways things could go wrong. Charlotte seemed to read my thoughts. "We can still back out," she said softly as we rode the elevator down to the parking garage where our team waited. "Call the police. Take our chances." I shook my head. "No, this is our best option, and it might be Diana's only option." The drive to the warehouse took 30 minutes, each passing mile increasing the tension. I wore a bulletproof vest beneath my coat, an insurance policy, Harris had called it, and carried a panic button disguised as a keychain. Charlotte was similarly equipped, though she'd refused the vest, claiming it restricted her movement too much. Our convoy consisted of 3 vehicles: the SUV carrying Charlotte, me, Harry, and 2 security operatives posing as our driver and bodyguard, a nondescript van holding the surveillance team, and a 3rd vehicle with additional security positioned to block the warehouse exit if necessary. Harris's voice came through our earpieces as we approached. Thermal imaging shows 6 individuals inside the warehouse, 4 grouped together near the east entrance, 2 separated, likely Diana and a guard, in what appears to be a small office at the rear. "Any snipers? Lookouts?" asked Moore, our bodyguard. "Negative on snipers. 2 lookouts on the perimeter, both armed. We're tracking them." We pulled up to the warehouse exactly at 11 p.m., headlights illuminating the rusted metal doors. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the doors creaked open, revealing a cavernous space beyond. "Here we go," Charlotte murmured, squeezing my hand, briefly before Moore opened our door. We stepped out into the cool night air, Harry close behind us. The warehouse loomed before us, dark except for a single pool of light in its center where 4 men waited. I recognized none of them. "Miss Caldwell," called one, a tall man with silver at his temples. "And Miss Caldwell, right on time. Please join us." As we walked forward, Harris's voice whispered in our earpieces. "Silver hair is Victor Caruso. The others are known associates, all armed. Diana is still in the back office, 1 guard with her. Team 2 is moving into position to extract her once the transaction begins." We stopped several feet from Caruso, maintaining distance. "Where's Diana?" Charlotte demanded, her voice impressively steady. Caruso smiled thinly. "Safe. You'll see her once the transfers are complete." "That wasn't our agreement," I replied. "We see Diana first, verify she's unharmed, or there's no deal." A flash of annoyance crossed Caruso's face, quickly masked. "Very well." He nodded to one of his men, who spoke into a radio. Moments later, a door at the back of the warehouse opened, and 2 figures emerged, a burly man pushing Diana before him. Even from a distance, I could see she'd been roughed up since the photo was taken. A bruise darkened her cheekbone, and she limped slightly as she was forced forward. "Satisfied?" Caruso asked smoothly. "No," Charlotte replied. "We want her brought here now." Caruso's eyes narrowed, but he gestured again to his man, who prodded Diana forward until she stood beside him. "Diana," I said carefully, "are you all right?" She nodded, though fear clouded her eyes. "Just do what they want," she said hoarsely. "Please." Caruso placed a laptop on a small table that had been set up in the pool of light. "Diana's personal computer, as promised. The accounts are already bookmarked. All you need to do is log in with the credentials Ryan provided and follow the instructions." Charlotte stepped forward, but I caught her arm. "Wait, how do we know this isn't just another setup? That these transfers won't implicate us in something worse?" "You don't," Caruso replied bluntly. "But you're not exactly overflowing with options right now, are you?" He gestured around the warehouse. "Tick-tock, ladies. My associates grow impatient, and Diana has already tested their patience significantly." In my ear, Harris whispered, "Team 2 in position. Team 3 covering the exits. On your signal, we move." I caught Charlotte's eye, a silent communication passing between us. Together, we approached the laptop. "I'll handle the login," she murmured, loud enough for Caruso to hear but low enough to sound private. "You check the transfer details." It was a code we'd established with Harris. Charlotte's words signaled we were ready for them to move. I pretended to study the paper with transfer instructions, while Charlotte opened the laptop, her fingers hovering. "Over the keyboard. Now," I heard Harris command through the earpiece. And chaos erupted. Flashbang grenades detonated at multiple points around the warehouse, the explosive light and sound momentarily disorienting everyone. Moore, our bodyguard, tackled Charlotte and me to the ground, shielding us with his body as Harris's team burst through every entrance simultaneously. Gunfire erupted, sharp and terrifying in the enclosed space. I couldn't see beyond Moore's protective form, could only hear the shouting, the running footsteps, the chaos of a coordinated assault meeting. Desperate resistance. "Stay down," Moore ordered, his weight heavy but reassuring as bullets whizzed overhead. Through gaps in his protective stance, I caught glimpses of the scene. Harris's operatives in tactical gear converging on Caruso's men, Diana being pulled to safety by a masked figure. Harry crouched behind an old piece of machinery, phone in hand, presumably calling police now that the operation was underway. The firefight was brief but intense. When it ended, the silence seemed almost as deafening as the gunfire had been. "Clear!" called a voice from the darkness. "Perimeter secure," added another. Moore finally rolled off us, helping first Charlotte then me to our feet. The warehouse was transformed. Caruso and two of his men were face down on the concrete, zip-tied and subdued. The others were presumably either escaped or neutralized elsewhere in the building. Harris's team moved with military precision, securing weapons, checking for additional threats. Diana sat on a crate near the entrance, a female operative tending to her injuries. When she saw us, relief washed over her face. "You came," she said simply. "You actually came for me." "Of course we did," Charlotte replied, moving to sit beside her. "We couldn't let them hurt you." Harris approached, his expression grim beneath his tactical helmet. "Police are 3 minutes out. We need to establish the narrative quickly. Ms. Blackwell was kidnapped. You were blackmailed. You contacted private security instead of police due to concerns about corruption. Stick to that story. Keep it simple." I nodded, still processing the violence we'd just witnessed. Is everyone okay?" "My team is unharmed," Harris replied. "2 of Caruso's men are down. Wounded, not dead. Caruso himself took a graze to the shoulder, but is otherwise intact. Most importantly, all of you are safe." The police arrived in a cacophony of sirens and flashing lights, followed closely by ambulances and, inevitably, news vans alerted by police scanners. The next hours dissolved into statements, medical checks, and carefully worded explanations that omitted Harris's more aggressive tactics while emphasizing the danger we'd faced. By dawn, we were exhausted, but free to leave. The immediate crisis contained. Diana was hospitalized for observation, her injuries painful but not life-threatening. Caruso and his captured men were in custody, facing kidnapping and attempted murder charges among others. "What happens now?" Charlotte asked as we sat in Harry's car, watching the sunrise from the hospital parking lot. We'd insisted on staying until we knew Diana was stable, but now fatigue was catching up with us. "Now the legal system does its job," Harry replied, though he didn't sound entirely convinced. "Caruso will likely attempt to cut a deal, offering evidence against Ryan in exchange for leniency." "And Ryan?" I asked. Harry's expression darkened. "Additional charges. A stronger case. But don't underestimate him, even now. We've dealt his network a significant blow, but it may not be dismantled entirely. So we're still not safe," Charlotte concluded. "Safer," Harry corrected. "But vigilance remains advisable." He drove us back to the hotel, where we collapsed into exhausted sleep, the adrenaline crash hitting us both hard. When we woke that afternoon, it was to news that Ryan had been placed in solitary confinement after evidence emerged of his orchestrating the kidnapping from inside. "His attorney has been arrested as well," Harry informed us over a late lunch in my hotel room. "Conspiracy, evidence tampering, obstruction of justice. The prosecutor is building quite the case." It should have been reassuring. Instead, I felt a persistent unease, a sense that something remained unfinished. Charlotte seemed to share my disquiet, picking at her food with uncharacteristic hesitation. "Something still doesn't add up," she said finally, voicing what I'd been thinking. "This all feels too contained. Ryan always has contingencies, backup plans." Harry nodded soberly. "I've had the same thought. That's why I've arranged for you both to stay at a secure location for the time being. A property owned by my firm, off the books. No paper trail." "For how long?" I asked, dismayed at the prospect of continued hiding. "Until the trial. Or until we're certain Ryan's network is completely neutralized." Seeing our expressions, Harry softened his tone. "I know it's not ideal, but it's necessary. We've already seen what Ryan is capable of, even from behind bars." We reluctantly agreed, packing our few belongings and checking out that evening. Harry's secure location turned out to be a modernist house nestled in the woods outside the city, accessible only by a single winding road and surrounded by state-of-the-art security systems. "Private chef, housekeeper, and security detail," Harry explained as we toured the property. "All vetted by me personally over many years. You'll be comfortable here, and more importantly, safe. It was beautiful, peaceful, and felt like a gilded cage. As Harry prepared to leave, promising to return in a few days with updates, I pulled him aside. "There's something else, isn't there?" I asked quietly. "Something you're not telling us." Harry hesitated, clearly weighing how much to share. "There are inconsistencies in the information we've gathered, accounts that don't align with what we know of Ryan's activities, relationships that don't make sense given the timeline." "What are you saying?" He sighed heavily. "I'm saying that we may not have the complete picture yet, that there could be other players involved whom we haven't identified." "Diana?" Charlotte asked, having overheard our conversation. "Do you think she's hiding something?" "Possibly," Harry admitted. "Her story checks out on the surface, but there are depths we haven't plumbed. The safe deposit box she mentioned? We still don't know what's in it. She claims she lost the key during her ordeal." "You don't believe her," I observed. "I'm reserving judgment," Harry replied diplomatically. "But I am continuing to investigate, all angles." After he left, Charlotte and I explored our temporary home, both of us processing this new uncertainty. The house was exquisite, sprawling, filled with light despite its secluded location, every comfort thoughtfully provided. But it was hard to appreciate luxury when it came wrapped in security measures and unanswered questions. That night, we sat on the deck overlooking the forest, the stars unusually bright away from city lights. A bottle of wine half empty between us, fatigue and tension temporarily held at bay by alcohol and the peaceful surroundings. "Remember when our biggest problem was that I stole from your trust fund?" Charlotte asked with a hollow laugh. "Simpler times." I smiled despite myself. "Technically, that's still our problem, just with added kidnapping, gunfire, and conspiracy." "I'm going to pay you back," she said suddenly, serious again. "Every penny, even if I have to sell everything I own." "I know you will," I replied, "but that's not what matters right now." "What does matter?" she asked, pouring more wine for both of us. I considered the question, watching the liquid swirl in my glass. Surviving this, coming out whole on the other side, not letting Ryan destroy our lives or our relationship. Charlotte nodded, looking out at the darkened forest. "I keep thinking about Diana, about the similarities in our stories. How easily I could have ended up like her, alone, looking over. My shoulder for years, defined by my relationship with Ryan. But you didn't," I pointed out. "You're here, you're safe, and you're not alone." She turned to me, eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "Because of you. Because you didn't give up on me, even when I betrayed you." "That's what family does," I said simply. "The real kind, not the Ryan kind." We sat in companionable silence after that, both lost in our own thoughts about what had happened and what might still come. The wine mellowed my anxiety, replacing it with a drowsy determination. We would get through this, whatever this turned out to be. We would rebuild our lives, our trust in each other, and the world. But as I drifted toward sleep that night, in a strange bed in a secure house in the woods, one thought kept circling back. What was in Diana's safe deposit box? What evidence was so valuable, so potentially damaging, that it had survived 5 years as her insurance policy against Ryan's retribution? And why, now that Ryan's network was at least partially exposed, was she suddenly reluctant to share it? The pieces still didn't fit together completely. And until they did, we remained in a state of suspension, safer than before, but still caught in the complex web Ryan had spun around all of us. The real end to this story was still waiting to be written. 2 weeks passed in our woodland sanctuary, a strange suspended animation of safety and uncertainty. Harry visited regularly, bringing news of the outside world, Ryan's case building, Caruso cooperating with authorities in exchange for reduced charges. Diana recovering and relocated to her own secure location. The financial investigation was progressing as well. The accounts Ryan had provided were gradually being unlocked, revealing an elaborate network of fraud spanning years and multiple victims. The prosecutor is building a RICO case, Harry explained during one visit. Racketeering, conspiracy, fraud. Across state lines. Ryan won't see freedom for decades, if ever. It should have been reassuring. Instead, I found myself increasingly restless, plagued by the sense that something remained unresolved. Charlotte felt it too. I'd catch her staring out at the woods, expression distant, fingers absently tracing the scar on her wrist from the lake house struggle. "We can't stay here forever," she said one evening, after Harry had departed with promises to return in a few days. Hidden away like some secret shame. "It's for our safety," I reminded her, though the words sounded hollow even to me. "Is it?" she challenged. "Or is it just easier for everyone if we're tucked away, out of sight while they handle the mess?" I had no answer for that. The truth was, part of me had begun to resent our gilded cage, beautiful as it was. We were victims, yes, but also witnesses, participants in this strange drama. Being sidelined felt increasingly wrong. The next morning, I woke to find Charlotte already dressed, a determined expression on her face as she sat at the kitchen island with her laptop. "What are you doing?" I asked, pouring coffee from the pot our housekeeper had prepared before discreetly disappearing as she did each morning. "Research," Charlotte replied, not looking up. "On Diana Blackwell." I sat beside her, peering at the screen. "Finding anything interesting?" "Maybe." She turned the laptop so I could see better. Diana Blackwell, born Diana Mercer, graduated top of her class from Wharton. Worked at 3 different investment firms before starting her own consulting company 7 years ago, right around the time she met Ryan. "Impressive credentials," I noted. "Explains why she was a target for Ryan." Charlotte nodded. "But here's where it gets interesting. Her firm specializes in offshore asset management for high-net-worth individuals, privacy-focused services, complex financial structures." "Money laundering?" I suggested. "Not necessarily. Legitimate privacy measures are a real service, but the expertise required would be the same expertise needed to hide illicit funds," I finished, understanding where she was going. "You think Diana might have helped Ryan with his schemes? Been a partner rather than just a victim?" Charlotte bit her lip. "I don't know. But it would explain some of the inconsistencies Harry mentioned, and why she's reluctant to open that safe deposit box." The possibility was disturbing, but not implausible. Diana's fear had seemed genuine during her kidnapping, but what if her relationship with Ryan was more complex than she'd admitted? What if she'd been a knowing participant in his earlier schemes before something went wrong between them? "We need to talk to her," I decided. Directly, without Harry or the authorities filtering the conversation. "How?" "We're practically under house arrest here." I glanced toward the window where one of our security detail was visible patrolling the perimeter. "We've been cooperative for 2 weeks, shown we're responsible, predictable. Maybe it's time to be a little less predictable." Charlotte's eyes lit with understanding. "You want to sneak out?" "I want to get answers," I corrected. "If Diana has information that could affect our safety or the case against Ryan, we deserve to know it." It took another day to formulate our plan. The security rotated shifts at 2 p.m., creating a brief window when attention was focused on the handover rather than the house. The property had a service road used by delivery vehicles, less monitored than the main entrance. And most importantly, Charlotte had discovered that Diana had been relocated to a private medical facility less than 30 miles away. We moved on Thursday, slipping out during the shift change, taking the rarely used path to the service road where we'd arranged for a rideshare to meet us. The driver asked no questions about picking up passengers on a secluded Forest Service road, and within an hour, we were approaching the discreet rehabilitation center where Diana was recovering. Getting past reception proved surprisingly easy with a confident smile, and Charlotte's explanation that we were Diana's sisters-in-law, just back from overseas. The nurse directed us to a garden courtyard where Diana sat alone, a book open but unread in her lap, her gaze fixed on a flowering cherry tree in full bloom. She showed no surprise when we approached, as if she'd been expecting us all along. "I wondered when you'd come," she said, gesturing to the empty chairs beside her. "Harry's been keeping me updated on your woodland retreat." "Then you know we have questions," Charlotte replied, taking a seat. Diana nodded, closing her book. The bruises on her face had faded to yellowish shadows, but new lines of strain had etched themselves around her eyes. About the safe deposit box, about my relationship with Ryan, about what I haven't told you. "Yes," I confirmed, somewhat taken aback by her directness. She smiled thinly. "I've had a lot of time to think while recovering. About truth, about consequences, about what happens when secrets outlive their usefulness." She looked between us. "Ask your questions. I'll answer what I can." Charlotte leaned forward. "Were you involved in Ryan's schemes? Not just as a victim, but as a participant?" Direct, unflinching. My sister had rediscovered her backbone. Diana held her gaze. "Yes and no. When I met Ryan, I was building my business, specializing in legitimate, though aggressive, tax minimization and asset protection. He became a client first, then a romantic interest. He was charming, ambitious, seemingly successful." "When did you realize the truth?" I asked. "Gradually, then suddenly," she replied, a flash of pain crossing her features. "Small inconsistencies at first, explanations that didn't quite add up. Then I discovered documents showing he was defrauding other clients of my firm. By then we were married." "And you confronted him?" Charlotte guessed. Diana laughed bitterly. "I thought I could fix him, help him make it right, transition to legitimate business. Naive in retrospect. The pieces were starting to align. You didn't just leave him, I realized. You took evidence. Against him." She nodded. "Insurance, I called it. Every record I could find of his fraudulent activities, his network, his victims. Enough to destroy him if he came after me." "That's what's in the safe deposit box," Charlotte concluded. "Yes, but also," Diana hesitated, "evidence that could implicate me. Not in the fraud itself, but in helping hide the proceeds afterward. I didn't know they were illicit funds at first, but eventually I should have. I should have reported it immediately." "Instead, you used it as leverage," I noted, without judgment. Diana met my eyes. "Survival isn't always clean, Olivia. Sometimes, it's just choosing the least damaging option available." I understood better than I would have before Ryan entered our lives. The compromises we make when faced with impossible choices, the moral lines that blur when safety is at stake. "Why tell us now?" Charlotte asked. "Why not just keep your secrets?" Diana looked away, watching a hummingbird flit between flowers. "Because it's over. Really over. Caruso's testimony, combined with the financial evidence the authorities have already uncovered, is enough to put Ryan away permanently. My insurance policy is obsolete now, and keeping it private only protects me, not you." "What are you saying?" I pressed. "I'm saying I'm ready to open the box," Diana replied simply. "To give the authorities everything, except whatever consequences come my way. It's time for a clean slate." The weight of her words settled over us. This wasn't just closure for Diana. It was potential closure for us as well. The final piece securing Ryan's imprisonment, ending the threat he posed. "When?" Charlotte asked. "Tomorrow. I've already contacted the detective handling the case." Diana's expression softened. "You're welcome to be there, if you want. It affects you too." We agreed, exchanging contact information before leaving Diana to her solitude and recovery. The ride back to our secluded house was quiet, both of us processing what we'd learned. "Do you believe her?" Charlotte finally asked as we approached the service road, preparing to sneak back in before our absence was discovered. I considered the question carefully. Yes. Not because I think she's been completely honest until now, but because telling the truth no longer costs her more than the secrets. People change, Charlotte mused, perhaps reflecting on her own transformation these past months. Sometimes, I agreed. When the alternatives become untenable. We slipped back into the house, undetected, our brief escape apparently unnoticed by the security team. That evening, we called Harry, informing him of our conversation with Diana and her plan to open the safe deposit box the following day. His initial irritation at our unauthorized excursion quickly gave way to pragmatic acceptance. "I'll arrange for us to be there," he said. "This could be the final piece we need for complete closure." The next morning found us at First Meridian Bank downtown, a small gathering of key players in what had become an unexpectedly complex drama. Charlotte and me, Harry, the lead detective on Ryan's case, Diana with her own attorney, and 2 financial crime specialists from the FBI. Diana looked surprisingly at peace as she provided identification, signed the necessary forms, and pressed her thumb to the biometric scanner. The bank manager led us to a private room where the box was delivered with ceremonial solemnity. "Whatever happens next," Diana said, key poised at the lock, "I want you both to know I'm sorry for any part I played in perpetuating Ryan's harm, even by omission." The lock turned. The lid lifted. Inside lay a thick folder of documents, a small external hard drive, and a single USB drive. "Everything," Diana said simply, pushing the box toward the detective. "Every transaction, every alias, every victim, and my own complicity, documented in full." The contents were quickly secured as evidence, Diana providing her thumbprint to verify chain of custody. Her attorney spoke quietly in her ear, but she shook her head. "No deals," she said, loudly enough for all to hear. "Whatever consequences come, I accept them." It was over in less than 30 minutes. Diana was taken for formal questioning, the evidence transported to the FBI field office for analysis. Harry escorted us back to his car, his expression thoughtful. "This changes things," he noted as we drove away from the bank. "With Diana's evidence, there's no chance Ryan walks free. No chance his network rebuilds." "So we can go home?" Charlotte asked. "Back to our lives?" Harry nodded slowly. "I believe so. With appropriate caution, of course. But yes, the most acute danger has passed. Freedom. After weeks of confinement, months of fear, the prospect seemed almost dizzying." Charlotte squeezed my hand, her eyes bright with unshed tears. 6 months later, life had found a new normal. Ryan pleaded guilty to multiple federal charges, accepting a 30-year sentence, rather than face trial with the mountain of evidence assembled against him. Diana received 5 years probation and hefty fines in exchange for her cooperation, her testimony instrumental in dismantling what remained of Ryan's network. Charlotte and I had both moved, she to a new condo downtown, me to a historic brownstone. I'd been eyeing for years. The distance between us was geographical only. In all other ways, we'd grown closer than ever before. To fresh starts, Charlotte proposed, raising her glass at the small gathering in my new living room. Harry was there, along with a few close friends who'd supported us through the ordeal. "And to trusting the right people," I added, clinking my glass against hers. Later, after the others had gone, Charlotte and I sat on my new porch swing, watching the city lights sparkle against the darkening sky. "I've been thinking about grandfather's trust," she said suddenly. "About the marriage clause." I laughed softly. "That old thing? Seems like a lifetime ago." "It was meant to protect us," Charlotte mused, "from exactly the kind of predator Ryan turned out to be. Grandfather knew what he was doing." "In a way," I agreed. though I doubt even he anticipated how it would actually play out. Charlotte was quiet for a moment. "I've decided to use part of my trust to create a foundation," she said finally, "for women escaping financial abuse. Legal aid, resources, education about warning signs." I smiled, not surprised. Charlotte had always had a generous heart, even when misguided. "That sounds perfect. Will you help me?" she asked. "Be on the board? Help shape the mission?" "Of course," I replied without hesitation. "That's what sisters do." She leaned her head against my shoulder, a gesture reminiscent of our childhood. "I'm still paying back the money he took from you, every penny." "I know," I said simply, because I did know. Because trust, once broken, then painstakingly rebuilt, often emerges stronger than before. The trust fund that had once divided us had ultimately brought us closer, teaching us both painful but necessary lessons about vulnerability, resilience, and the true meaning of family. Not the kind bound by legal documents and financial obligations, but the kind forged in crisis, tempered by forgiveness, and strengthened by shared survival. Ryan had taken much from us both: money, security, innocence. But he had failed in his ultimate goal: to break us apart. In that failure lay our greatest victory, more valuable than any inheritance. The sister who had once stolen my trust fund had returned something far more precious: absolute trust in each other, the kind no marriage clause or legal protection could ever provide. The kind that was ours alone to give, to earn, and to honor. And that, I knew with quiet certainty as we sat together in peaceful silence, was the greatest security either of us would ever need.